There were only a few familiar coral islands in the distance that one could set foot on. In the blink of an eye, more than 100 years had passed. Back then, he was still a naive early blood condensation cultivator. When he came here, he didn't notice anything. Now, when Lu Ping looked at this place again, he could clearly sense the abnormality of the surrounding sea. Logically speaking, since there were coral islands around, the sea should not be too deep. In reality, however, there was a huge underwater abyss in the middle of these sparse coral islands. Lu Ping's divine sense spread out. When he sensed that there was no one within a radius of more than 100 miles, there was a flash of light and he dove into the deep sea. The waterproof moon pearl floated above Lu Ping's head. The surrounding seawater was automatically pushed away, forming a shield with a radius of 3 meters. The shield isolated the pressure of the surrounding seawater. Lu Ping quickly dove into the pitch-black bottom of the sea. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ping had already dove more than 10,000 meters into the sea. However, his surroundings were still pitch-black, and the bottom of the sea was still unfathomable. The depth of this underwater abyss was far deeper than Sage Lake. A green light flashed in Lu Ping's eyes as he tried his best to look into the depths of the sea below him. At the same time, he tried to use his divine sense to break through the strong water pressure and spread out. However, in the end, the range he could cover was only 1% of what Lu Ping's divine sense could cover. Lu Ping continued to rapidly descend into the sea. A strange current suddenly appeared in the surrounding seawater. Lu Ping's expression did not change. As far as his eyes could see, he saw a huge strange fish suddenly rush out of the dark seawater beneath his feet. It opened its huge mouth that was filled with strange teeth and went against the current under Lu Ping's feet. From afar, it looked as if Lu Ping was about to fall into the strange fish's mouth. Lu Ping's 2 swords suddenly appeared beneath his feet. The 2 swords circled each other and slashed downwards, piercing through the strange fish's body through its mouth, creating a 5-foot wide hole. Lu Ping did not stop for a moment. He went straight into the fish's mouth and passed through the big hole created by the long sword, continuing to head to the bottom of the sea. At the same time that the strange fish's body was pierced by Yi Ren's autumn water sword, it continued to rush upwards, but its speed was getting slower and slower. Blood spread out, quickly dyeing the surrounding seawater red. As the bloody aura spread through the seawater, countless deep-sea creatures scuttled out of the pitch-black seawater and charged towards the corpse of the strange fish. In an instant, a chaotic battle broke out. When the chaotic battle ended, everything returned to normal. Even the blood-red color that permeated the seawater had disappeared. At this time, Lu Ping had already dived to a depth of 3,000 feet. Even if the water-repelling moon pearl was said to be able to repel all kinds of water, the originally 10 feet wide barrier had been compressed to a little more than 5 feet wide. As for other core forging cultivators, if they did not have special water-repelling magic treasures, their bodies would not be able to withstand the huge pressure in the depths of the sea. Lu Ping stopped here and no longer dived. His divine sense had already captured that 100 feet below his feet, there was an array formation hidden in the seawater blocking Lu Ping's path. Through the 3 pure eyes, Lu Ping could faintly sense the existence of this array formation. Lu Ping slowly dived down to the front of the array formation. He seemed to be recalling something. Then his hands began to form hand seals. The entire process was like a butterfly flying through flowers. Even if a cultivator used their divine sense, they would not be able to keep up with Lu Ping's hand changes. Lu Ping's hands formed countless hand seals, and when he finally stopped, there were already 6 mysterious runes completely condensed from true essence on his right hand's 5 fingers and the center of his palm. Lu Ping slapped his right palm on the array formation. The bluish-purple true essence slowly spread to the surroundings with his palm as the center. It was 3 feet wide, and it was difficult to advance any further. Seeing this, Lu Ping twisted his right hand. The entire array formation that was covered by the bluish-purple true essence suddenly let out a cracking sound. A 3 feet wide hole appeared on the array formation. The entire array formation seemed to have been activated in an instant. An inexplicable force was transmitted, and the edge of the hole was rapidly shrinking. Lu Ping did not hesitate any longer. His whole body had already passed through the hole and into the array formation. 4,000 years ago, the North Sea had gathered the power of 3 grand adepts and close to 20 Dharma adepts. It took them close to 2 hours to temporarily control this array formation. This allowed the Laozu to enter the array formation. However, Lu Ping had only used the time it took to drink a cup of tea to create a temporary hole in the array formation that only allowed one person to pass through. After passing through the array formation, Lu Ping dived down once again. At a depth of 50,000 feet, the pressure here was difficult for even Dharma adepts to withstand. The water and moon repellent pearl could only maintain a 3 feet wide array formation around Lu Ping's body at this point. At this time, Lu Ping could already see that on the wall of the abyss, which he still could not see the bottom of, there was a stone platform protruding from the wall. It formed a stone platform that was tens of feet wide. Around this stone platform, there was also a protective array formation that surrounded the entire stone platform. Looking at the glow of the array formation, it was obvious that this array formation was much stronger than the one that Lu Ping had passed through previously. Around this stone platform, especially on the wall of the abyss where the stone platform was, there was a huge array formation that surrounded the entire stone platform. The style of the array formation and the stone platform seemed to be incompatible. It was as if someone had forcibly embedded the array formation into the stone platform. This should be the large array formation that the Laozu of the various sects had set up to guide this stone platform. It was because of the existence of this large array formation that the North Sea cultivators were able to guide this stone platform to the surface of the sea every 500 years, when the large array formation was at its weakest. Then, the 200 early blood condensation disciples selected by the various sects would be transported through the array formation on the stone platform to the deepest part of the abyss, Fei Ling Mountain, which was submerged at the bottom of the abyss. Chapter 890. Lu Ping looked at the array formation that protected the entire stone platform, but he didn't try to break it. Although this array barrier was much tougher than the previous one, it wasn't too difficult for Lu Ping to break it. The difficult part was that the teleportation array on the stone platform was deliberately left behind by Fei Ling's sect. It could only allow early blood condensation cultivators to enter. It was originally a special passage for Fei Ling's sect to cultivate their disciples, but it later became the only passage for the sects to enter Fei Ling Mountain. The formation plate of this teleportation array was set up in a secret place in Fei Ling Mountain. Even though Lu Ping had the purple jade slip, he couldn't make any changes to this teleportation array from outside Fei Ling Mountain. Therefore, Lu Ping couldn't use this stone platform to teleport to Fei Ling Mountain. Lu Ping continued to dive deeper. When he reached a depth of 60,000 feet, 9 layers of protective aura burst out from his body in succession, expanding the water-moon repelling pearl's protective aura that had shrunk to only 1 foot around his body and expanded it back to about 3 feet. At this time, the abyss was getting narrower and narrower. With the 3 pure eyes, Lu Ping could vaguely see the stone walls of the abyss several miles away. As he dived deeper, many arrays and restrictions began to appear. As Lu Ping dived deeper, the arrays and restrictions became denser and denser, making it more difficult to break them. If it weren't for Lu Ping's hundreds of years of preparation, and his mastery of the contents recorded in the purple jade slip, even if Lu Ping's true essence was strong and pure, it would have been exhausted long ago. In such a deep seabed abyss, the consumption of true essence in the body would increase exponentially with the use of each incantation. 4,000 years ago, after Fei Ling Mountain sank to the bottom of the sea, the North Sea sect's Laozu teamed up and went deep into the abyss with a few formation masters. They wanted to find Fei Ling Mountain again, but the countless arrays and restrictions in the abyss exhausted their true essence. In the end, they had no choice but to retreat to the sea. In the end, it was only through the calculations of a few formation masters that they set up a traction formation on the stone platform. Every 500 years, when the formation was weakened, the blood condensation realm disciples from each sect would be able to enter Fei Ling Mountain through the stone platform in search of some superficial benefits. With the purple jade slip in hand, Lu Ping already knew how to break these arrays and restrictions like the back of his hand. He also had the support of his true essence, but now he still felt a little tired. In the blink of an eye, Lu Ping had already reached a depth of nearly 7,000 feet. Back then, when the North Sea Laozu teamed up to reach this point, only 5 mid-Dharma Laozu and 3 Dharma adepts were left. The rest of the Laozu had used up their true essence in the process of breaking the restrictions and resisting the water pressure. Moreover, this was not the only reason why the Laozu stopped. The more important reason was that these arrays and restrictions were left behind by the Fei Ling sect for thousands of years. After generations of cultivators constantly perfected or added new restrictions, these restrictions intertwined with each other, forming an endless forest of arrays that was connected to the spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain. In this forest of arrays, unless one could completely cut off the spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain in one fell swoop, these arrays and restrictions would slowly recover after a period of time, even if they were broken through various methods. This meant that even if the Dharma Power Laozu forcefully broke through these arrays and reached the deepest part of the mountain, if he did not have any true essence left in his body, then unless he could break through to the destination in one go, he would still have to face the arrays and restrictions that had already recovered when he returned. Without enough true essence, even a Dharma adept could only wait for death. Lu Ping swallowed a vitality pill. Although Lu Ping still had more than half of his true essence left in his body, the deeper he went, the more true essence he used. Even though Lu Ping had the purple jade slip, he still had to be careful. At the depth of 80,000 feet, the remaining 5 mid-Dharma adepts stopped here, and the amount of true essence that Lu Ping used was equivalent to the total amount of true essence he had used up in the past 10,000 feet. Fortunately, the vitality pill that Lu Ping refined was made with the spirit peach as a medicinal catalyst, and its quality was extremely high. It was quite effective in restoring the true essence in the body, making up for a part of Lu Ping's true essence loss. At the depth of 90,000 feet, the bottom of the abyss could be seen clearly under the gaze of the 3 pure eyes. Lu Ping could even see Fei Ling Mountain below through the layers of arrays and restrictions at the bottom. In the past, 3 great adepts came here and saw that Fei Ling Mountain was right in front of them. However, because of the layers of protective arrays, they no longer had the energy to break it. In the end, it felt like it was far away. The 3 great adepts, Laozu, failed at the last step and returned with regret. Among the 3 great cultivator ancestors, one of them had expended a lot of energy in breaking the formations and restrictions. On the way back, he was blocked by the formations and restrictions that were gradually recovering. In the end, he had no choice but to use his origin true essence. However, in the end, because his origin true essence was exhausted and his body was damaged, he passed away in the Blue Sea sect not long after he finally escaped from the abyss at the bottom of the sea. After the destruction of the Flying Spirit sect, Xianling sect, Jinling sect, and Songhai sect benefited the most among the sects in the North Sea. But because the ancestor died so quickly, Songhai sect didn't have time to digest these benefits, and the sect's strength was gradually caught up and surpassed by Xianling sect and Jinling sect. The other 2 great adepts were also more or less affected by this trip to the abyss at the bottom of the sea. In the next 300 years, the 2 great adepts of Xianling and Zhenling sects also died one after another. The entire cultivation world of North Sea suddenly ushered in a period of no great adepts. This was also the reason why the entire cultivation world of North Sea, which was originally backward, even began to be called barren. In the next 4,000 years, no one in North Sea tried to open Fei Ling Mountain again, and the abyss at the bottom of the sea gradually began to be unknown. Only every 500 years, the late-stage core forging cultivators of various sects would gather to open the traction array and pull the teleportation stone platform to the sea. After Lu Ping reached the bottom of the abyss, he didn't immediately start to crack the island's protective array under his feet. Although the purple jade slip recorded the composition of the island's protective array and the method to crack it, it had been strengthened and condensed by dozens of generations of cultivators in Fei Ling Mountain for tens of thousands of years. Even if Lu Ping was proficient in the restriction inheritance of Fei Ling sect, he wouldn't be able to crack it from the outside without a few months of painstaking work. Lu Ping swallowed another spirit recovery pill, carefully savoring the process of the pill fusing into the blood in his abdomen and refining it into qi, and then walked to the stone wall on the left. Lu Ping fumbled along the stone wall, and occasionally made a gesture to hit on the stone wall. After a flash of light, layers of arrays and restrictions were revealed. Lu Ping looked disappointed and continued to fumble toward the stone wall behind him, continuing to make gestures to test something. It shouldn't be, it should be here. Lu Ping's voice kept muttering to himself, but he didn't make any gestures. At the same time, Lu Ping casually cast a hand seal on the stone wall that was also protected by the array formation. The array formation that was supposed to expand outwards to disintegrate the array formation's power suddenly sunk inwards and bounced outwards. Lu Ping's hand seal's power to disintegrate the array formation's power was even more thoroughly disintegrated. Lu Ping looked happy. It's here. Lu Ping took out a spirit sealing box from the storage magic tool. After thinking about it, he put the box back, and then his hands made 81 gestures in an instant, hitting the restriction on the stone wall. However, the restriction attached to this stone wall also caved in. Then, the dispelling power of these spells completely collapsed, and then it returned to its original state. The 81 hand gestures in an instant were the fastest speed that Lu Ping could do while ensuring that the power of each hand gesture was as strong as possible. However, the result made Lu Ping depressed. Fortunately, only the restriction-breaking spell in the purple jade slip could make a dent. After the dent appeared, the items in the spirit sealing box could be used. Otherwise, Lu Ping didn't believe that the Fa Xiang Laozu, who tried to reopen Fei Ling Mountain, would have fewer items than Lu Ping's spirit sealing box. The secret spell in the purple jade slip was only the key. If he wanted to open the lock, he had to have the strength to open the door. Otherwise, it would be useless. The restriction-breaking talisman in the spirit sealing box was the help for Lu Ping to open the door. Lu Ping took out a 5-color restriction-breaking talisman from the spirit sealing box. After thinking about it, he changed it to a 6-color restriction-breaking talisman. This was not the time to be distressed about these treasures. Lu Ping cast a Fei Ling sect seal-breaking spell with his right hand, and the seal on the stone wall suddenly caved in. But before the seal could bounce back, a 6-colored seal-breaking charm appeared in his left hand and smashed onto the dented seal. 6 colorful lights shone on each other, tearing apart the layers of seals on the stone wall. Lu Ping narrowed his eyes and without hesitation, he took out another 5-colored talisman from the spirit sealing box. He infused his quintessential energy into the talisman and activated it. Then, he slapped it on the 6-colored talisman that was gradually melting away. The layers of restrictions finally cracked, and a crack that only allowed half a body to fit through completely opened up. Behind the crack was a narrow cave. Lu Ping leaned to the side and jumped into the crack without hesitation. The crack behind him immediately returned to its original state. Lu Ping bent his waist and walked all the way into the depths of the cave. After about 800 feet, Lu Ping's eyes lit up. A stone room with a radius of 100 feet appeared in front of Lu Ping. The stone walls were flashing with a strange light. It must be the light of the restrictions on the stone walls. In the center of the stone room, there was a small teleportation array surrounded by a layer of green and white formation. Lu Ping could even see the teleportation array disc in the center of the teleportation array. This was a secret teleportation array of Fei Ling sect. It was one of the escape routes that Fei Ling sect had prepared. Unfortunately, this escape route was only known to the 3 great adepts of Fei Ling sect. Before Fei Ling sect was destroyed, the 3 great adepts had passed the purple jade scroll to Fei Ling sect's 3rd generation adept, Zhao Yuqiang. It was a pity that Jiao Yuqiang was besieged by several Dharma adepts. Although he managed to escape, he suffered an incurable injury and died in his own cave abode. This purple jade scroll ended up in the hands of Lu Ziping, who was only at the early blood condensation stage at that time. Lu Ping opened his right palm and a 7-colored talisman appeared in his hand. This time, Lu Ping did not even test it. He directly hit the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman on the teleportation array's protective shield. Chapter 891. This time, Lu Ping didn't even bother to probe. He directly slapped a 7-color restriction-breaking talisman on the protective shield of the teleportation array. When he saw the teleportation array, Lu Ping no longer thought about whether it was too wasteful to use a 7-color restriction-breaking talisman. After slapping such a priceless talisman on the protective shield, Lu Ping took out a 5-color restriction-breaking talisman. He was ready to continue to use the restriction-breaking talisman in his hand in case of emergency. Fortunately, in the midst of the rustling sound of snow, the colorful light of the protective shield of the teleportation array was completely annihilated and shattered. Before the protective shield of the teleportation array was restored, Lu Ping hurriedly stepped into the teleportation array. He threw a top-quality spirit stone into the center of the teleportation array and then embedded more than 10 top-quality spirit stones around the teleportation array. Seeing that the protective shield of the teleportation array had not been restored, Lu Ping's feet stomped and the teleportation array was activated. After a dazzling white light flashed, Lu Ping's figure disappeared from the teleportation array. When Lu Ping reappeared, his whole body was submerged in water. Lu Ping was shocked in his heart. How could he still be in the sea? But then he found that there was almost no strong force that could crush a person's body. At the same time, the water was not salty, but fresh water with a trace of sweetness and spiritual energy. Lu Ping opened his eyes and looked around. At this time, he found that Lu Ping was standing in a stone room submerged in water. On one side of the stone room, there was a narrow crack, and the starry light was penetrating through the crack. The rumbling sound of water coming from above gave Lu Ping a sense of déjà vu. Lu Ping moved his mind and the surrounding water suddenly surged. Lu Ping's figure was pushed by the water toward the crack in the stone room. When Lu Ping came out of the crack, he found that he was under a pool of water. Using the wave-treading art, Lu Ping rushed up from the bottom of the pool. After a while, a wave surged on the surface of the pool. Lu Ping stood on the wave and quickly spread his divine sense in all directions. So it was here. Lu Ping looked around at the environment that had changed a lot but was still very familiar. When he looked back, he saw that not far away was the foot of Failing Mountain. A layer of light curtain extended from the foot of the mountain, completely enveloping the entire majestic Failing Mountain. When Lu Ping and the others entered Failing Island all those years ago, they had gathered outside Failing Mountain's mountain guarding formation and waited for the right time to break the light screen of the mountain guarding formation together before entering Failing Mountain. But now, Lu Ping directly entered Failing Mountain's mountain guarding formation. It was just that when Lu Ping followed the meandering stream down from Failing Mountain, he carefully explored the pool under his feet with his divine sense, but he did not find any clues. Now, when Lu Ping penetrated the pool under his feet with his divine sense, he still could not find the crack in the stone room that was submerged by water. Because no one used it for cultivation, the spiritual qi that had accumulated for thousands of years had become extremely rich and pure. Lu Ping greedily breathed in the air that was full of spiritual qi. The blood in his body surged and roared. The spiritual qi that was originally consumed by breaking the restrictions along the way was quickly recovering. Lu Ping followed the route he took when he was still in the blood condensation realm. He walked along the stream, treading on the waves as he searched the surroundings with his divine sense. But before he reached the mountainside, Lu Ping had already discovered 4 or 5 hidden cave dwellings on Fei Ling Mountain. Judging from the protective array formation around the cave dwellings, these cave dwellings must have been built by core forging realm cultivators. However, Lu Ping was not in the mood to excavate these caves at this time. First, these caves might not be of interest to Lu Ping. Second, now only Lu Ping could enter Failing Mountain. At this time, the entire Failing Mountain could be said to belong to him alone. Naturally, he was not in a hurry to excavate the caves. When he reached the mountainside, Lu Ping couldn't help but stop stepping on the waves. A trace of surprise appeared on his face. After thinking for a moment, he found a few techniques to break the restrictions on the purple jade slip. He formed a hand seal and flicked it towards the riverbank. Originally, it looked like an ordinary riverbank. After Lu Ping made a few hand seals, the entire riverbank gradually began to emit a 5-colored light. When the light dissipated, a spirit herb garden about 10 meters long along the riverbank appeared in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping was overjoyed when he saw the spirit herbs in the spirit herb garden. The spirit herbs here were all at least 3,000 years old, and they looked like they had reached a certain age. Not only that, there were no signs of damage in the surroundings at all. Lu Ping had never heard of any blood condensation realm cultivators being able to find 3,000-year-old spirit herbs in Failing Mountain every 500 years. It was obvious that there were 3,000-year-old spirit herbs planted in Failing Mountain. It was just that the protective formation protecting the 3,000-year-old spirit herbs was not something that blood condensation realm minor repairs could discover, let alone open. At the very least, when Lu Ping went upstream along this stream, he didn't discover that there was a spirit herb garden here that was specially used to plant 3,000-year-old spirit herbs. How many 3,000-year-old spirit herb gardens had been planted on Failing Mountain? This was a spirit vein that had once been reduced from a giant spirit vein to a large spirit vein, nourishing these undiscovered spirit herb gardens for 4,000 years. Almost all of the spirit herbs in the gardens had already matured, and they were also reproducing on their own, causing the scale of the spirit herb gardens to expand immeasurably. Just thinking about this made Lu Ping's heart burn. It should be known that it wasn't just Failing Mountain. The entire Failing Island was the only large island in the North Sea at that time. How many 3,000-year-old spirit herb gardens had not been discovered? Although other places did not have the nourishment of large spirit veins like Failing Mountain, 4,000 years was enough for at least one batch of spirit herbs to grow to a sufficient age. The so-called age of a spirit herb was merely referring to the number of years that it would take to grow in an ordinary environment. However, in a place like Failing Mountain, where it was nourished by spiritual energy, the spirit herbs would definitely mature earlier. A 3,000-year-old spirit herb might only need 1,000 years, 800 years, or even less to reach the required age. Lu Ping continued to travel along the stream. When he was less than half a kilometer away, he activated the 3 Pure One's true eyes and found another riverbank that was covered with a protective formation. The spiritual herb garden was disguised as a soil slope. When Lu Ping reached the source of the stream, the peak of Failing Mountain, Lu Ping had already broken through 7 to 8 3,000-year-old spirit herb gardens along the way. After thinking for a moment, Lu Ping opened a door to the golden house. The amethyst queen bee, Lu Xilan, flew out shakily. She looked around at the unfamiliar environment and asked, "Ah, what is this place?" There seemed to be a lot of spirit herb gardens. Seeing Xilan's reaction, Lu Ping knew that his previous guess was correct. Thus, he said, "This is the ruins of an ancient sect. Many of the spirit herbs below 1,000 years of age have been collected by others. However, the spirit herb gardens above 3,000 years of age are rarely discovered. Stay here and let the bee swarm search." Hearing this, Xilan giggled. Her body began to dance in midair. A deafening buzzing sound surged out from the golden house. Following her silent communication with the amethyst queen bee, the bee swarm was divided into several groups by Xilan and flew in all directions. Xilan whistled and a puppet horse galloped out of the golden house. Xilan sat on the horse's back and grabbed the reins with one hand. She swung the whip in her other hand and followed the bee swarm to find the spirit herb gardens. Lu Ping hurriedly said, "Don't worry, these 3,000-year-old spirit herbs are not hard to find with your amethyst queen bee's spirit-seeking talent. Moreover, most of the spirit herb garden's protective formations can't withstand the power of a core forging stage cultivator. However, some of the more important spirit herb garden's protective formations are more stable. Take these restriction-breaking talismans. If you come across one, slap one on it. If it still doesn't work, write it down and wait for me to come out of seclusion before breaking it. Lu Ping took out a bunch of restriction-breaking talismans from his storage magic tool. These talismans were all single-colored, double-colored, and triple-colored talismans that Lu Ping had made in the blink of an eye. At the same time, he gave a spirit sealing box to Xylan. Inside the box were 3 4-colored talismans that Lu Ping had made. After making these talismans, Lu Ping didn't have any use for them, so he had accumulated a lot of them. In terms of the power of restriction-breaking talismans, the single-colored and double-colored talismans couldn't compare to Xylan's core forging stage cultivation. The Amethyst Wasp Dao Soldier array that Xylan controlled was definitely not something that a triple-colored talisman could compare to. Even a 4-colored talisman might not be able to compare to it. However, the advantage of a restriction-breaking talisman was that when it broke a formation, it wouldn't cause any damage to the things inside the formation. However, it was difficult to guarantee that it would work if an external force was used to break a formation. Every 3,000-year-old spirit herb was considered precious. Lu Ping didn't want to damage the spirit herbs inside the spirit herb garden by breaking the protective formation of the spirit herb garden by force. Hopefully, there were enough spirit herb gardens on Fei Ling Mountain. After 4,000 years of nurturing, the spirit herbs inside would be of sufficient age. This might be a rare opportunity for Xylan, who had already reached a bottleneck in her cultivation. Standing at the top of Fei Ling Mountain, strictly speaking, was the highest point of Fei Ling Mountain that had its peak broken off. During the war that destroyed the Fei Ling sect, the entire top of Fei Ling Mountain had been blown off, causing the giant spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain to be damaged and drop to the level of a large spirit vein. Most of Fei Ling sect's Dharma adepts' caves, places of inheritance, and treasure vaults were built on the top of the mountain where the spirit energy was the densest. These things were almost completely plundered by the cultivators of the various sections. Lu Ping had opened up a secluded area at the source of the stream. This was also the source of the spirit vein and the place where the spirit energy was the densest in the whole of Fei Ling Mountain. At this time, this spirit vein, which had at least 5 large spirit veins, was being used by Lu Ping alone to smelt the 3rd type of spirit item and advance to the peak of the core forging stage. Chapter 892. Lu Ping patted his chest, and the Linglong wine cauldron rose from Lu Ping's head. Linglong leaned on the edge of the cauldron and poked her head out, shouting, "What a pure aura!" This time, it's Linglong's turn to show off. Finally, I can go all out for once. With the support of such a huge spiritual vein, Linglong will definitely be able to recover to her peak state in 3 years. Lu Ping ignored Linglong's clamor and just threw it towards the source of the stream. The entire wine cauldron began to emit a misty silver light as it rotated. Then, the whole cauldron seemed to have lost control and fell into the stream, sinking at the source of the spiritual vein. A dull roar came from the entire Fei Ling Mountain, then the mountain suddenly shook. Lu Ping could even see through the light curtain of the mountain guarding formation in the distance that the entire Fei Ling Island seemed to be trembling. However, after this shock, the entire Fei Ling Island no longer shook, but the dull roar continued to come. Although Lu Ping could not perceive the changes in the underground spiritual vein and the earth vein, he could sense that the aura on the top of Fei Ling Mountain seemed to have become orderly all of a sudden. Originally, the source of the stream was the center, and there was aura dissipating in all directions. Now, the entire Fei Ling Mountain began to gradually restrain the aura, only emerging from the source of the stream. Due to the concentration and dissipation of the aura in the spiritual vein, it even formed a straight pillar of aura at the top of Fei Ling Mountain, constantly shaking the light curtain of the mountain guarding formation at the top of the mountain. Waves of ripples spread along the light curtain of the mountain guarding formation, even causing the entire mountain guarding formation to shake. Lu Ping absorbed the purest and heaviest qi from this pillar of aura, using it to refine the qi in his body, improve his cultivation, and polish his own foundation. 3 months later, Lu Ping gradually noticed that the concentration of aura in the entire Failing Mountain seemed to be slowly increasing. It seemed that the spiritual vein in Failing Mountain was constantly condensing and increasing, or slowly recovering. A year later, a faint wine aroma began to drift out from the source of the stream under Lu Ping's feet. Lu Ping raised his eyebrows. It seemed that Linglong once said that when it could use its own aura to make wine, it meant that after 4,000 years of wear and tear, Linglong's wine cauldron had finally completely recovered to the peak state of a tribulation spiritual treasure. When Lu Ping woke up from his closed-door cultivation, there was another strong spiritual vibration coming from Failing Mountain. This was the spiritual vibration caused by a breakthrough in cultivation. Lu Ping pinched his fingers and counted. 3 years had passed. Lu Ping's divine sense swept down from the top of Failing Mountain. After a while, a smile finally appeared on his face. This was the Amethyst Bee Queen, Zilan, using the royal jelly brewed from the spiritual herbs in the 3000 spiritual herb garden to push her cultivation to the 3rd level of the core forging realm in one fell swoop. At this time, the swarm of amethyst bees had expanded to 12,000. Among them, there were hundreds of amethyst bees in the late blood condensation realm, and the total number of amethyst bees in the blood condensation realm had reached 3,000. Fortunately, the amethyst bees could only be used as Tao soldiers. If they relied on pure strength, an amethyst bee in the late blood condensation realm could only slightly defeat an early blood condensation realm human cultivator. Otherwise, Lu Ping's 12,000 amethyst Tao soldiers would be invincible in the world. However, even though the Amethyst Bee Queen was already at the 3rd level of the core forging realm, none of the amethyst bees in the swarm could break through to the core forging realm. Lu Ping had asked Zilan about this, but even the Amethyst Bee Queen didn't know the reason. At this time, Lu Ping's cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of the core forging realm. However, Lu Ping didn't plan to start refining the lightning tribulation water. After all, although Lu Ping had a lot of favorable conditions, there were still hidden dangers if his cultivation increased too quickly. Whether it was the increase in cultivation from the heavenly flower dew, the fortuitous encounter in the sacred lake, or the entire spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain, all of them were for Lu Ping's use. However, the more it was under such circumstances, the more Lu Ping didn't dare to be careless. He also didn't dare to be careless about his own cultivation. As such, Lu Ping spent another 5 years tempering the true essence in his body. At the same time, he tempered the medicinal efficacy that had accumulated in his body due to the Golden Resilience Pill, Bone Forging Pill, Ashwood Clear Jade Pill, and other spirit pills that could increase the strength of his body. During these 5 years, Lu Ping used a 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman to open an opening in the light curtain of the mountain guarding array at the foot of Fei Ling Mountain. At the same time, he used the purple jade slip of Fei Ling sect to close the opening. Initially, Lu Ping wanted to completely stop the defensive array formation on Fei Ling Mountain. Unfortunately, even after months of searching, he still couldn't find the array formation hub used by Fei Ling's sect to control the entire defensive array formation. In the end, he had no choice but to use a 5-colored restriction-breaking talisman to open up a small opening. Through this opening, the amethyst bees were no longer limited to Fei Ling Mountain. They were busy all over Fei Ling Island. Although there weren't many 3,000-year-old spirit herb gardens outside Fei Ling Mountain, there were many other spirit herb gardens. Although these things weren't very helpful for Zilan to improve her cultivation, they were enough to make amethyst honey and amethyst royal jelly. Therefore, when Lu Ping woke up from his closed-door training 5 years later, there were 10 jade crystal bottles and 5 jade essence bottles in front of Lu Ping. The jade crystal bottles were filled with amethyst honey, and the jade essence bottles were naturally filled with amethyst royal jelly from the core forging stage amethyst queen bee. A giant yellow-skinned tiger squatted not far from Lu Ping. This time, the reason why Lu Ping woke up from his closed-door training was because the giant yellow-skinned tiger's aura was fluctuating. However, the pure spiritual energy in the surroundings was continuously gathering towards the giant tiger's body. In just 8 years, under Lu Ping's guidance, Lu Xiaohai, who was originally only at the 8th layer of the blood condensation realm, had grown into a giant yellow-skinned tiger that was 3 meters long and 5 feet tall. Lu Xiaohai's cultivation had also soared to the peak of the blood condensation realm. He was only one step away from the core forging stage and becoming a shape-shifting beast cultivator. Judging from Lu Xiaohai's appearance, this giant tiger was clearly at the critical moment of a breakthrough. Therefore, Lu Ping woke up from his closed-door training and specially protected it. The giant yellow-skinned tiger's aura fluctuated strangely for more than a month. Suddenly, the giant tiger that was lying not far from Lu Ping's side suddenly unleashed a powerful aura. A pair of bell-sized eyes suddenly opened, and its body that was lying on the ground suddenly stood up like a human. It was only then that Lu Ping realized that the giant tiger that had grown 10 feet long and 5 feet tall had somehow grown another 3 feet in length and 6 feet in height. The giant tiger looked extraordinarily majestic. Just as the giant tiger stood up, it opened its mouth and roared. A violent tiger roar came crashing down from the top of Mount Fei Ling, along with a fierce aura. Within a radius of several thousand feet from the top of Mount Fei Ling, countless spirit grasses and giant trees were all toppled over by this tiger roar. In the past, when Taoist who preached to the world, every time he held a lecture, a tiger roar could almost shake the heaven and earth. Whether it was human or demon cultivators, after hearing this tiger roar, people from all over the world would gather in the Taoist field where Taoist who held his lecture. Later, Taoist who passed down the bloodline Taoist orthodoxy, and this tiger roar in the forest was one of the bloodline inherited divine sense of the Deng-eyed White Forehead clan. Just as Lu Xiaohai roared, Lu Ping's divine thoughts had also observed that in the core space of his heart, a huge internal alchemy was slowly condensing. Because of the pure spiritual energy absorbed in the past 8 years, Lu Xiaohai's internal alchemy did not have time to refine the impurities contained in it due to the rapid improvement of his cultivation. The entire internal alchemy looked extremely pure, which showed that the foundation was also extremely solid. Although Lu Xiaohai's tiger roar in this lifetime was far from the level of a great divine ability, and was even far from the level of a minor divine ability, this tiger roar had planted the seed of a direct divine ability for Lu Xiaohai. Just after Lu Xiaohai's tiger roar, the huge tiger head began to gradually change. The fur on the surface continued to disappear, and the huge head began to shrink. Gradually, the face of a chubby toddler began to gradually outline. Lu Xiaohai's entire huge body began to gradually shrink until it completely turned into a human form. What Lu Xiaohai showed in front of people was just the appearance of an 8 or 9-year-old fat child. Xiaohai greets master. Lu Xiaohai, with a trace of a child's voice, no longer had the spirit of looking down on the world just now. Lu Ping nodded with a smile and praised, not bad, very much like Taoist whose roar, and the world was awed. As he spoke, Lu Ping rummaged through his storage device, and then only heard a clanging sound. Then, a pair of copper hammers was thrown out by Lu Ping. When Lu Xiaohai saw the pair of copper hammers, his eyes suddenly lit up. After all, he was still a child, and he did not hide the hope in his eyes for the pair of copper hammers. Lu Ping said, "What are you waiting for? This is specially for you." "Really for me?" Lu Xiaohai picked up the pair of copper hammers on the ground. Although it was a little difficult, he could barely swing them. Lu Xiaohai's excitement was beyond words. "Thank you, master, for the reward. Xiaohai is going to play with Sister Peach Blossom." Lu Xiaohai naturally wanted to show off to others after getting a novel thing. This pair of copper hammers was obtained by Lu Ping when he killed a demon cultivator in the Fallen Secret Land. It was a pair of top psychic magic weapons that had condensed the 6 treasures restriction. In the future, it could even be upgraded to a spirit-nurturing magic weapon. After obtaining this pair of copper hammers, Lu Ping had kept it until Lu Xiaohai reached the core forging stage. Lu Xiaohai's cultivation method was of the metal attribute, so he was the best person to wield this pair of copper hammers. Even though Lu Xiaohai's current strength was still unable to completely bring out the might of this pair of top spirit-linked magic treasures, the more it was like this, the more it was able to motivate Lu Xiaohai to place even more of his thoughts on cultivation. After 8 years, Lu Ping had finally polished his cultivation to the ideal level. At this time, Lu Ping could finally refine the Thunder Tribulation Water without any worries and advance to the peak of the core forging stage. Chapter 893. There was a flash of light in Lu Ping's palm, and a shining golden core appeared in Lu Ping's hand. This was a golden core that had already reached the 9th grade. It could be said to be a perfect existence in the cultivation world. It was the foundation that would allow one to become a great cultivator in the future, and there was hope of becoming a pure Yang patriarch or even a true spirit cultivator. However, the pure flood dragon bloodline contained in this golden core, which Lu Ping obtained from the Tenma people Ma Chenxi, was a huge temptation to Lu Ping's own bloodline. This temptation was very familiar to Lu Ping. Every time Lu Ping smelted a spirit item and made a breakthrough in his cultivation, Lu Ping's bloodline would be in a state of extreme thirst for similar bloodlines. This was the uniqueness of Lu Ping's bloodline. Normally, cultivators only needed to smelt 3 types of bloodlines in the blood condensation realm to strengthen their own bloodline. Then, their cultivation would soar. But Lu Ping was different. He had already fused 5 types of bloodlines, but after reaching the peak of the 9th grade core forging realm, Lu Ping's cultivation showed no signs of breaking through, no matter how hard he tried. When Lu Ping took out the 9th grade golden core of the Tenma people that contained the Flood Dragon bloodline, not only did his bloodline throb, but the bottleneck of his cultivation also completely loosened. The golden core was placed in his palm, and blue true essence surged from his palm, completely wrapping the golden core into a ball of true essence. Traces of bloodline power in the golden core were completely stripped away by Lu Ping's true essence. Then, it was brought into his bloodline and completely refined by Lu Ping's bloodline. The ball of true essence in Lu Ping's palm was shrinking bit by bit. When the entire golden core completely melted into Lu Ping's true essence, Lu Ping's divine sense quickly entered the core space. At this moment, above the golden core in the core space, the 9 huge strange dragons were completely coiled together, as if they were about to welcome some sort of change. At this moment, the power of the bloodline essence brought by the Zhen Yuan was absorbed by the golden Dan. The tails and bodies of the 9 strange flood dragons intertwined with each other. Behind the 9 strange flood dragons' necks, a lush horse mane grew at an extremely fast speed, making the 9 strange flood dragons look even more monstrous. At this moment, the bottleneck of the 9th layer core forging realm was broken. In the cultivation world, the tribulation thunder water was known to be the most difficult to smelt among all the heaven and earth spiritual objects. The lightning tribulation water did not contain lightning tribulation chi, but it did contain a trace of lightning tribulation power. Therefore, the 7 Fan Laozu of the Tianxian sect wanted to use the lightning tribulation water to wash his 7 treasured fans. This was to familiarize the fans with the power of lightning tribulation. When the fans really faced the second lightning tribulation, they would be able to successfully survive it and upgrade the 7 treasured fans to second tribulation spiritual treasures. However, the power of the lightning tribulation that spiritual treasures faced during the tribulation was far less than that faced by Dharma adepts. Therefore, the lightning tribulation water was of little help to a cultivator in overcoming the tribulation, but it was much more important for a spiritual treasure. This was also why the 7 treasures thunder gourd had done everything possible to swallow the lightning tribulation water into the gourd when Lu Ping obtained it. The lightning tribulation water did not contain pure yang qi, but it did contain a trace of pure yang qi. When a cultivator refined the lightning tribulation water, they were also familiarizing themselves with the pure yang qi in the lightning tribulation water. This way, after the cultivator successfully passed the tribulation, they would be more familiar with the pure yang qi and be able to refine more pure yang qi into their Dharma adepts. The more pure yang qi the Dharma adepts refined, the more tenacious the foundation and life force of the Dharma adepts were, and the higher the possibility of passing the next lightning tribulation in the future. Lu Ping held the seven treasures thunder gourd in his hand and shook it vigorously, barely managing to hold a drop of the lightning tribulation water in the palm of his hand. The numbing power of the lightning tribulation directly passed from his palm to the core space. Lu Ping threw the seven treasures thunder gourd on the ground and laughed. "You still don't want to part with it? This lightning tribulation water belongs to me, your master, and you dare to borrow it without returning it?" Lu Ping's palm was suffused with a bluish-purple Jin Yuan, and wave after wave of this Jin Yuan attacked the blue drop of Jin Yuan in his palm. But this drop of lightning tribulation water also seemed to be aware of the crisis, and lightning suddenly burst out, and before the bluish-purple Jin Yuan could wrap it up, a bluish-purple Jin Yuan barrier instantly wrapped Lu Ping's entire palm in a flash of lightning. For a moment, Lu Ping could even feel his entire arm convulsing under the lightning. In the core space, the huge golden Dan began to slowly rotate, and 9 strange flood dragons appeared one after another on the surface of the golden Dan. Each time a strange flood dragon appeared, it would issue a silent cry towards the direction of Lu Ping's arm. A wave of purple Dan Qi surged up in the middle of the core space, and the Jin Yuan in Lu Ping's blood was like a wave, and each wave was higher than the previous one as it rushed towards the palm of his hand. The bluish-purple light shined brightly, but at this time, the lightning tribulation water seemed to be lacking in strength. Finally, the flames of the lightning tribulation water were completely suppressed by the purple Jin Yuan. Even so, if Lu Ping wanted to thoroughly refine the lightning tribulation water, it would still be extremely difficult. According to Lu Ping's estimates, if he wanted to use his own Jin Yuan to assimilate this drop of lightning tribulation water, it would take at least 3 months, and if he wanted to completely refine it, it would still take another 3 months. Thoroughly refining a drop of lightning tribulation water would take half a year. Afterwards, as Lu Ping refined more and more of the lightning tribulation water, the time needed would become shorter and shorter. But even so, it would take at least 10 years or even 20 years of painstaking effort to complete this process. However, at this moment, a mysterious power hidden within the Jin Yuan suddenly burst forth. The light of the lightning tribulation water that was still tenaciously resisting the corrosion of Lu Ping's Jin Yuan suddenly dimmed. Lu Ping immediately felt that the resistance of the lightning tribulation water in his palm began to drop, and the speed at which the Jin Yuan corroded it began to accelerate. At this time, Lu Ping realized that this was because he had completely refined the pure yang energy and fused it into his bloodline. Although the pure yang energy in Lu Ping's bloodline was extremely thin, the main carrier of the pure yang energy was the tribulation thunder. After the tribulation thunder was weakened, the lightning tribulation water would naturally be tamed much more easily in front of the pure yang energy. With the help of the weak pure yang energy contained in his bloodline, the time that Lu Ping needed to refine the lightning tribulation water was greatly reduced. In just 3 months, the first drop of lightning tribulation water was completely refined into his Jin Yuan. After the refined drop of lightning tribulation water was fused into his Jin Yuan, Lu Ping could clearly perceive that there was a trace of extremely violent spirituality in his bloodline. And after this spirituality finally fused into his golden core, in Lu Ping's divine sense, the 9 strange flood dragons suddenly jumped in his golden core, and the golden core also followed suit. Then, the entire core space shook, and for a moment, Lu Ping felt as if his entire heart was about to jump out of his chest. Immediately after this trace of spirituality fused into the Dan Xia purple mist, the combined and condensed 100 rivers into the sea talisman and mulberry sea mulberry field talisman seemed to suddenly come to life. A sound of a sword and the sound of a surging tide surged out from Lu Ping's divine sense. It seemed as if the whole world was about to change. And with this trace of spirituality fusing into the natal gentian formation, the flashing spirit of the grade 9 white jade lotus seemed to be even more dazzling, and the 5-colored light of the gentian bead became even more dazzling, almost covering the body of the gentian bead. After refining the first drop of lightning tribulation water, the second drop of lightning tribulation water was a little easier to refine. Compared to refining the first drop of lightning tribulation water, the refining time was shortened by 3 days. After refining a drop of lightning tribulation water, the time used by Lu Ping would be shortened by 1 to 3 days. When Lu Ping finished refining the first drop of lightning tribulation water, the time used by Lu Ping to refine a drop of lightning tribulation water had already been shortened by 1 month, and the whole time had already passed by 4 years. However, when Lu Ping set out to refine the second drop of lightning tribulation water, the time used was shortened again. This time, it was about 30 days for each drop of lightning tribulation water, all the way to the last drop of lightning tribulation water, and finally, it only took 6 to 7 days, and finally, it only took 1 year. However, at this time, Lu Ping's Xin Yuan demand for lightning tribulation water was far from satiated. When it came to refining the third drop of lightning tribulation water, Lu Ping actually only needed 1 day to refine a drop of lightning tribulation water. After a full 24 days, the third drop of lightning tribulation water had already been thoroughly refined into his blood vessels. And after refining the third drop of lightning tribulation water, a great power surged in Lu Ping's blood vessels. Lu Ping's divine sense was closely watching the great changes that were taking place in his core space. When Lu Ping advanced to the 9th layer of core forging, the 9th strange flood dragon that formed in his golden core suddenly turned around and slammed into the body of the first strange flood dragon that formed when Lu Ping advanced to the 9th layer of core forging. A huge roar resounded in Lu Ping's divine sense, and Lu Ping's head involuntarily tilted back. When Lu Ping's divine sense returned to his core space, he was shocked to find that one of the strange flood dragons had disappeared from his golden core. Lu Ping hurriedly checked his own cultivation and found that he was still at the 9th layer of core forging. Only then did he breathe a sigh of relief. At this time, the 8th strange flood dragon that was condensed when Lu Ping advanced to the 8th layer of core forging also slammed into another strange flood dragon. This time, Lu Ping was prepared. Although the roar in his divine sense was still unceasing, causing Lu Ping to feel dizzy, Lu Ping finally saw that after the 8th strange flood dragon collided with the body of the first strange flood dragon, it was extremely miraculously integrated into the body of the first strange flood dragon. At this time, Lu Ping discovered that the body of this strange flood dragon was actually much larger than the other strange flood dragons. Obviously, this was because it had integrated with the 9th and 8th strange flood dragons. This strange flood dragon was obviously the first strange flood dragon that appeared in Lu Ping's golden core when he had just advanced to the core forging stage. Immediately after, the 7th strange flood dragon, the 6th strange flood dragon, until the 2nd strange flood dragon collided with the first strange flood dragon and integrated with it. When the last strange flood dragon collided with the golden core, a strange flood dragon that was far larger than the previous one appeared in the middle of the golden core. It was even more majestic and powerful than before. It shook its head and wagged its tail, looking very lively. Lu Ping's golden core finally emitted a dazzling light. 9 mysterious golden runes appeared in a row and crawled all over the surface of the golden core. The golden core had reached the peak of the core forging stage. Lu Ping was finally only 1 step away from becoming a Dharma adept. Lu Ping knew he had gotten carried away just now, so he calmed himself down and prepared to continue his closed-door cultivation. He wanted to stabilize his cultivation base after his recent breakthrough. Unexpectedly, just as Lu Ping was about to refine quintessential essence, the Linglong wine cauldron suddenly jumped out from the source of the stream. "I found a tool spirit like me, do you want to take a look?" Tool spirit? Lu Ping was taken aback, and without hesitation, he asked, "Where is it?" Lu Ping couldn't help but be surprised. What was a tool spirit? It was something that could only be born from a spirit treasure that had gone through a lightning tribulation and absorbed pure yang qi. There might be other ways to give birth to a tool spirit, but Lu Ping himself didn't know. Even if there were other ways, a tool spirit must be a precious existence. Where is it? How did you find it? What kind of spirit treasure is it? Lu Ping raised his foot and opened his mouth to ask 3 questions at the same time. Obviously, he was a little impatient. Why are you so anxious? It can't run now. If it could run, it would have run away in the past 4,000 years. why would it wait until now? Ling Long said angrily, I had some surprises to tell you, but now there's no way. Lu Ping realized that he was really too anxious. It seemed that after advancing to the peak of core forging and condensing a 9th-grade golden core, Lu Ping's mind had been in a trance state. Lu Ping knew that this was because his cultivation had not yet stabilized. Oh, I was too anxious. So Ling Long, how did you find this tool spirit? Ling Long coldly snorted, turned around, and jumped into the wine cauldron. It was unknown what she was fiddling with, but after a moment, she emerged from the wine cauldron and said, Here you go. 3 round water droplets sparkled with a bright light as they flew towards Lu Ping. A strong wine fragrance that could intoxicate a person was suddenly emitted from these 3 water droplets. The 3 water droplets hovered in front of Lu Ping. Lu Ping carefully looked at them, and his nose twitched. He hesitantly asked, Heavenly fragrant wine? Ling Long proudly swung the small braid on her head and said, Yes, a Heaven Step mid-grade water attribute world treasure, heavenly fragrant wine. Lu Ping carefully stored the 3 heavenly fragrant wine droplets in a jade bottle, and then asked, Ling Long, how did you do it? How could you even brew a treasure like heavenly fragrant wine? Ling Long proudly raised her small head and said, It's a pity that the spirit veins of Fei Ling Mountain haven't recovered after recovering to the state of 7 large spirit veins. Otherwise, if Ling Long could recover to the level of 1 large spirit vein, she would even be able to brew a Heaven Step high-grade heavenly fragrant wine at the source of the spirit vein. At that time, just the fragrance of the wine would be enough to intoxicate people to death. In the world of cultivation, there were 3 strange water attribute heavenly fragrant wine. They were the Heaven Step low-grade heavenly fragrant wine, the Heaven Step mid-grade heavenly fragrant wine, and the Heaven Step high-grade heavenly fragrant jade liquid. These 3 world treasures all appeared in the world of cultivation in the form of wine. They were also wondrous spirit treasures used by cultivators who cultivated water attribute cultivation techniques to increase their cultivation. However, cultivators would usually be in a drunken state during the smelting process, and the smelting process would also take a long time. The longer the drunken state lasted, the longer the smelting process would take. Moreover, after a cultivator smelted any one of these 3 world treasures, they would become extremely addicted to wine, and it would be difficult for them to kick the habit for the rest of their lives. Seeing Lu Ping's surprise, Ling Long became even more proud. She proudly said, As long as there is a large spirit vein to support it, Ling Long can brew a drop of Heaven Step low-grade heavenly fragrant wine every 5 years. If there are more than 5 large spirit veins to support it, Ling Long can brew a drop of Heaven Step mid-grade heavenly fragrant wine. Similarly, if there is a large spirit vein to support it, Ling Long can also brew a drop of Heaven Step high-grade heavenly fragrant wine every 5 years. She withdrew her head from the wine cauldron and fiddled with it for a long time. When her head came out again, she was holding 3 jade bottles in her hands. She said, You have been in seclusion for almost 15 years, and only have these 3 drops of heavenly fragrant wine. However, these bottles of heavenly fragrant wine are real spirit wines brewed using the water from the stream at the source of the spirit vein. They are also one of the best wines in the world of cultivation, and the spiritual chi contained in them is no less helpful to a cultivator's cultivation than a Dharma adept's spirit pill. How could Lu Ping not recognize this famous spirit wine? It was said that the brewing process of this spirit wine was extremely complicated, and it could not be successfully brewed without decades or centuries of cultivation. The number of people in the world of cultivation who knew how to brew this spirit wine could be counted on one's fingers. Every time a bottle of this spirit wine appeared, it would cause many Dharma adepts to fight over it. This was because this spirit wine was different from spirit pills. It could be repeatedly used by a cultivator to assist in their cultivation, and it would not produce any toxic side effects or resistance. Spirit pills were different. Some extremely special spirit pills could only be consumed 3 times before losing any effect. As for spirit pills that were used to assist in cultivation, a cultivator could only consume 3 bottles at most. After that, it was very easy for a cultivator to develop various kinds of medicinal toxins in their bodies. After Linglong handed all these things to Lu Ping, she saw that Lu Ping's attitude was quite satisfactory. She then said, "All these years, I have been combing through the spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain, and I have indirectly gained partial control over the entire spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain. Thus, I discovered that in one of the spirit stone veins, there is a spirit life like me." Upon hearing this, Lu Ping immediately asked, "A spirit stone vein? You mean you discovered a spirit stone vein?" Linglong was extremely angry at Lu Ping's sudden interruption, and she gave Lu Ping a big eye roll. Lu Ping chuckled and said, Okay, continue. This artifact spirit is extremely strange. It can actually leave its body and exist on its own. However, it seems to be extremely weak and can only rely on the spirit stone vein to continue its existence. Once it leaves the spirit stone vein, this artifact spirit will probably disappear immediately. Oh. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "It seems like someone deliberately placed this artifact spirit inside to prevent the artifact spirit from dissipating on its own." Lu Ping followed the direction pointed by Linglong all the way out of Fei Ling Mountain, and came to the back of a small stone mountain in the southeast of Fei Ling Island. On a rocky slope, Lu Ping turned over every stone one by one. After continuously turning over a pile of rocks, a pitch-black mine cave finally appeared in front of Lu Ping. Could there be a medium-sized spirit stone vein inside? Lu Ping stood at the entrance of the cave and muttered to himself. This spirit stone vein didn't even have the slightest bit of spiritual qi leaking out. Just as Lu Ping was about to walk into the cave, he suddenly saw a woman floating out of the cave. Her body was so weak that it was almost transparent. She didn't look surprised when she saw Lu Ping. She said, "It's been 4,000 years, and someone has finally found this place. I didn't expect you to find Qian Zhong Su and the Golden House as well." Looking at the woman in front of him, Lu Ping knew that she was very weak at this time, and could even completely disappear from this world at any time. "What's your name? Where is your body?" Lu Ping asked. "Ryu, the spirit of the spirit stone, Ryu." The woman said calmly, "I am the guardian spirit of Fei Ling Sect's treasured ship." Chapter 895. Although a spirit stone mine was not as good as a spirit vein, a spirit stone mine still accumulated a relatively rich amount of heaven and earth spirit qi. However, when Lu Ping opened the entrance of the spirit stone mine, there was not a trace of spirit qi leaking out. Before Lu Ping could enter the spirit stone mine, an illusory figure of a woman that seemed like it would collapse at any time floated out from the depths of the mine. "How did you know that I have Qian Zhong Su and the Golden House?" When Lu Ping saw that there was indeed a tool spirit hiding here, he was overjoyed. However, when he heard that the tool spirit Ru Yu was able to see through Lu Ping's heavenly abode, Lu Ping's face sank. "It's very simple." The tool spirit Ru Yu curled up the corners of her mouth and smiled. However, this smile made her figure seem even more disorganized. Lu Ping furrowed his brows. He took out a top-grade spirit stone and cast spirit explosion art, causing the entire top-grade spirit stone to burst out with extremely pure spiritual energy that surrounded the jade-like artifact spirit. "Ah, a top-grade spirit stone." The tool spirit Ru Yu let out a cry of joy. Her originally disorganized figure quickly began to greedily absorb the rich and pure spirit qi. When the spirit qi was completely absorbed, the tool spirit Ru Yu's figure suddenly became much more solid. Because Qian Zhong Su and the Golden House were originally part of the treasure ship of Fei Ling Sect, the sea carriage, and I am the tool spirit of the treasure ship, no one can be more familiar with these two special heavenly abode than I am. Lu Ping's heart was already surging with emotions. The treasure ship of Fei Ling Sect was really something that one could wear out iron shoes in fruitless search, only to find it by chance without even looking for it. However, Lu Ping's expression did not change at all. Instead, he asked in a deep voice, "You said that you are the guardian tool spirit of Fei Ling Sect's treasure ship, so why are you here now?" Where is the treasure ship of Fei Ling sect? Although Lu Ping tried to hide it, the tool spirit Ru Yu seemed to be able to sense Lu Ping's eagerness for the treasure ship from Lu Ping's words. However, she still shook her head and said, the treasure ship had sunk in the northern part of the North Sea. At that time, the great practitioner of Fei Ling sect only had time to bring back the damaged golden house, Qian Zhong Su, and myself. Upon hearing this, Lu Ping was stunned and said, what? The golden house and Qian Zhong Su, these two celestial treasures, are also part of the treasure ship. Ru Yu nodded and said, yes, and they are the most important parts of the treasure ship. These two heavenly abode celestial treasures are the spatial core of the entire treasure ship, and also the key to the treasure ship's ability to travel between the central plains and the overseas cultivation world. The reason why the great practitioner of Fei Ling sect brought these two heavenly abode celestial treasures back alone was to repair them in the future, and then salvage the treasure ship from the bottom of the sea. Without these two heavenly abode celestial treasures, the wreckage of the treasure ship couldn't be repaired even if it was salvaged. Why did the treasure ship of Fei Ling sect sink? After a moment of silence, Lu Ping opened his mouth and asked. It was attacked. At that time, the great practitioner of Fei Ling sect who was controlling the treasure ship couldn't resist, but I don't know who the enemy was. Ru Yu's body was temporarily restored because of Lu Ping's supreme grade spirit stone, but if she wanted to completely restore to her peak state 4,000 years ago, a supreme grade spirit stone wouldn't be able to do it. An artifact spirit was different from a real cultivator. It could not cultivate at all. Even though it had survived the thunder tribulation and condensed pure yang qi, it could only be nourished by the cultivator's own true essence. Only then could it maintain or display its own functions. Once they lost the nourishment of a cultivator's true essence, the artifact spirit's own spirituality would fade with the passage of time, until the artifact spirit in a thunder tribulation spirit treasure completely disappeared, and it would become a spirit-nurturing treasure again, or even lower. However, the artifact spirit itself also had a body to protect it, just like how Linglong was protected by Linglong's wine cauldron. Although 4,000 years had passed, the artifact spirit's spirituality hadn't been lost too much. However, the artifact spirit Ru Yu was different from other artifact spirits. She could exist without a body, and her own quality might be stronger than Linglong's, but it was precisely because she didn't have a body to protect her that her current state was far worse than Linglong's. After I was brought back to Fei Ling sect, I was handed over to the master and disciple. The two of them worked together to repair Qian Zhong Su and the House of Gold. Later, the master seemed to be looking for something to repair the House of Gold, so he left with the House of Gold, leaving only the disciple who was repairing Qian Zhong Su and myself. Lu Ping's heart moved, and he said, is the master called Zhongshuan Laozu, and the disciple is Jiao Yuqiang? Ru Yu was stunned, and she said, it seems that too much time has passed, and my own spirituality has been lost. In order to slow down the loss of spirituality, I have forgotten many of my memories. Lu Ping nodded, this was right. When Linglong was first found in the Yingtian dojo, although she had the protection of the wine cauldron, her own spirituality had been damaged a lot, and many of her memories of the Yingtian dojo had been destroyed. Now, the loss of spirituality of this artifact spirit Ru Yu was obviously much greater than that of Linglong, but it was already quite amazing that she could still remember so many things. Without the treasure ship's body, how can you maintain your own spirituality for 4,000 years without being destroyed? Lu Ping looked at the cave behind Ru Yu, and he said, is it because of the spirit stone mine behind you? Ru Yu nodded, and she signaled Lu Ping to follow behind her. Lu Ping followed Ru Yu into the spirit stone mine. About 1,000 feet into the spirit stone mine, the spirit stone vein was already exposed on the cave walls. Spirit stones were scattered on the stone walls, glowing with a misty light and illuminating the originally dark cave. Lu Ping stared at the formation plate on the ground and the formation engraved around it, and he said in surprise, you relied on this formation to absorb spirit energy from the spirit stone mine to survive for 4,000 years? Ru Yu was stunned for a moment, and she said, yes, 4,000 years. This formation was set up by that disciple. At that time, something extremely important seemed to have happened in Fei Ling's sect, so he couldn't take care of me anymore. He hurriedly set up a formation here and left. As for me, I can't go too far away from here. Otherwise, if I can't receive the spiritual qi in the formation, I'll disappear soon. Lu Ping carefully examined the array formation. It was an extremely exquisite spirit transferring array formation. It could convert the spirit stones in the spirit vein into a unique spiritual energy that could be used to maintain its own form. It was similar to Lu Ping's spirit explosion art, albeit a different approach. However, this spirit transferring formation couldn't stimulate the spirit energy in the spirit stones to such a high degree like the spirit explosion technique, and the spirit explosion technique could only target one or a few spirit stones at a time, so it couldn't achieve the scale of the spirit transferring formation. Lu Ping carefully recorded this formation and gave it to Hu Lily as a reference in the future. It would definitely be helpful for her to improve her formation skills. After recording the spirit transferring formation, Lu Ping turned to look at Ruyu and said, "Miss Ruyu, what do you plan to do in the future?" Ruyu bitterly smiled and said, "What else can I do? If I continue to stay in this cave, I'm afraid that even with the spirit transferring formation, Ruyu will disappear. Moreover, the Golden House and the 1,000-bell millet are in Master's hands. That was the place where Ruyu lived on the treasure ship. Therefore, I hope Master can help me." Lu Ping stretched out his hand and flicked out a drop of bluish-purple liquid true essence with a trace of hidden electric arcs. The liquid true essence flew straight towards Ruyu's chest. The moment the liquid true essence touched the jade body of the artifact spirit, it was like a drop of ink falling into clear water. This drop of liquid true essence, with the jade chest as the center, quickly spread throughout her entire body. After refining 3 portions of thunder tribulation water, the spirituality in Lu Ping's true essence had a trace of violence. When refining magic treasure spirits and casting magical techniques, there were many more overbearing things in it. In addition, Ryu had reached an extremely weak state at this time. Moreover, she deliberately let Lu Ping be the master. Therefore, Lu Ping's refining process was surprisingly smooth. In just a cup of tea's time, Lu Ping's true essence had spread throughout the body of Ruyu's true essence. Then, the bluish-purple light disappeared again, and the Ruyu's true essence returned to its previous appearance of white clothes and plain face. However, although her previous appearance was still weak after being refined by Lu Ping, there was a trace of vitality and spirituality in her body. Obviously, her previous worries were gone. With the help of the spirit vein gathered by Ling Long at the top of Fei Ling Mountain, she should be able to recover as soon as possible. Lu Ping held the house of gold that was hanging on his neck in his hand. Ruyu's face lit up with joy. Without Lu Ping doing anything, the house of gold actually flew up from Lu Ping's palm. Then, the tightly closed door of the house of gold suddenly opened from the inside. Ruyu flew up and disappeared into the house of gold. With a thought from Lu Ping, the house of gold shrank and fell into his palm. Lu Ping could feel that the house of gold was going through a huge change at this time. However, at this time, Lu Ping turned his attention back to the spirit stone vein in front of him. Before the appearance of large spirit stone veins on Frost Island, even during the days when Fei Ling's sect dominated the North Sea, not a single large spirit stone vein had appeared in the North Sea. However, back then, the Fei Ling sect had monopolized 4 mid-sized spirit stone veins and maintained its position as the overlord of the North Sea. Of these 4 medium-sized spirit stone veins, 2 of them were taken as spoils of war by the sects of the North Sea during the Great War of Fei Ling sect. The other one was affected by the war, and after the earth veins changed, it was reduced from a medium-sized spirit stone vein to a small-sized spirit stone vein. Only the last one was still missing. Some people had guessed that this 4th medium-sized spirit stone vein was still on Fei Ling Island and had sunk into the abyss of the sea along with Fei Ling sect. However, every 500 years when Fei Ling Island opened, the blood condensation realm cultivators sent out by the sects never found this spirit stone vein. If it wasn't for Linglong's unique spirit treasure that could inspect the spirit veins on Fei Ling Island and observe many things that couldn't be found on the surface, this spirit stone vein would be concealed by the spirit transferring formation and Ruyu's artifact spirit. Not even Debeo would be able to find this spirit stone vein. Chapter 896. According to Lu Ping's knowledge, Jinling was currently planning to expand its share of the large spirit stone veins on Frost Island. Other than that, the larger spirit stone veins Jinling controlled came from a complete mid-sized spirit stone vein on Frost Island. There was also a mid-sized spirit stone vein that Jiang Tianlin Laozu, Copper Sword Laozu and Triple Brightness Laozu of Jade Sword Sect and Chong Ming Sect had transferred into the Abundant Void Treasured Mirror. After Jiang Tianlin Laozu had brought this spirit stone vein back to the North Sea, it had been transferred to a mid-sized island under Jinling's jurisdiction. Jinling's share of this spirit stone vein was 60%, while Jade Sword Sect and Chong Ming Sect each had 20%. The rest of the spirit stone veins were small and miniature spirit stone veins, and other spirit stone veins that had a very small share of the spirit stone vein. Although Jinling's spirit stone veins were second to none in the North Sea, following Jinling's rise, these spirit stone resources had become a little lacking in the process of cultivation. Of course, in reality, no sect would complain that their own spirit stone vein would produce an inexhaustible amount of spirit stones, not to mention that Jinling was far from being able to reach such a level. When Lu Ping saw this complete mid-sized spirit stone vein, he naturally thought about how to transfer the entire spirit stone vein away. Although Lu Ping did not have the abundant void treasured mirror that had been condensed with 8 heavenly abode treasured seals like Jiang Tianlin Laozu to guide the entire spirit stone vein away, after the artifact spirit Ru Jadeite had entered the House of Gold, the great changes that had occurred in the House of Gold had caused Lu Ping to change his mind. Lu Ping had long suspected that the little mountain in the House of Gold was specially set up to guide the spirit veins. However, because the spirit veins could not be stabilized after being guided to the little mountain, the spirit veins would gradually disappear after a long time. Even so, Lu Ping had guided a few spirit veins into the House of Gold to supply the spirit energy needed by the spirit demon peach tree, the gold nut fruit tree, the top-grade spirit tea tree, the soul-shocking tree, the white jade lotus pond, and a few other important treasures. However, Lu Ping had to spend his Jin Yuan to perform the spirit-strengthening secret technique every once in a while to stabilize these spirit veins, lest these spirit veins collapse because of the lack of a stable earth vein. However, after the weapon spirit Ruyu descended on Little Lonely Mountain, the first change appeared on Little Lonely Mountain. Lu Ping's spiritual force could clearly sense that earth vein power was gradually forming in Little Lonely Mountain. The existence of the earth vein power meant that the spirit veins could have a relatively stable foundation in the earth vein. With some simple methods, the spirit veins could be completely fixed in the earth vein, and there was no need to worry about the spirit veins collapsing. Sure enough, after a while, Ryu began to adjust the scattered small and micro spirit veins in the House of Gold. She gathered all of them on Little Lonely Mountain and merged them into a complete main spirit vein. Then, she opened up branch spirit veins to provide for the growth of some important treasures. At this time, Lu Ping had already returned to the top of Fei Ling Mountain and placed the House of Gold above the source of the main spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain. With the support of the main spirit vein that gathered 7 large spirit veins, in addition to the continuous nourishment by Lu Ping's Jin Yuan, the weapon spirit Ruyu had recovered a lot, which was why it could support the transformation of the House of Gold. During this period of time, Lu Ping once again turned his attention to cultivation. As long as he could completely consolidate his cultivation, this trip to Fei Ling Island could be considered to be successful. With the help of the huge spirit vein of Fei Ling Island, Lu Taohua had already smelted a middle-grade earth-rank spirit object and successfully pushed her cultivation to the middle stage of core forging. After Ruyu arrived, Linglong seemed to be quite repulsed by a weapon spirit like Ruyu. She had not come out from the stream at the source of the spirit vein. Lu Shaohai was sent to the cave of the spirit stone vein by Lu Ping to mine. Lu Xiaohai had obtained a pair of top-notch spiritual magic treasures, so he could use mining to hone his hammer skills. During this period of time, the Amethyst Queen Bee had almost turned over all the spiritual herb gardens on Fei Ling Island that it could find. It had already collected a batch of nectar. If it wanted to brew royal jelly again, it would have to wait a few years. However, Lu Ping gave her another task, which was to collect 3,000-year-old spirit herbs. After advancing to the peak of core forging, in addition to refining enough medicinal pills for cultivation, Lu Ping also had to prepare to refine the spirit water meridian toughening pill. Lu Ping had previously traded for a mature bloody skeleton flower in Mysterious Sky Ancient City. This was the main ingredient for refining the spirit water meridian toughening pill. Moreover, the amount of this bloody skeleton flower was enough for Lu Ping to refine 3 meridian toughening pills, which could guarantee that the pill would strengthen the body to the limit. The spirit water meridian toughening pill was a top-notch medicinal pill that could improve the body's strength. Its quality was even higher than the azure wood clear jade pill that Lu Ping had taken before. However, using the spirit water meridian toughening pill required a cultivator to be at least at the peak of core forging. Moreover, the 3,000-year-old spirit herbs needed to refine this pill were also very rare. In just a few days, Lu Ping had collected enough spirit herbs to refine the meridian toughening pill from the spirit herbs that Xylan had collected. However, Lu Ping did not let the Amethyst Queen Bee randomly collect the spirit herbs. Instead, he collected them selectively and purposefully, especially when it came to spirit herbs that Lu Ping did not have. After collecting them, the Amethyst Queen Bee would try her best to find seeds and plant them in the spirit herb garden of the Golden House. Lu Ping discovered that the existence of Ruyu, the spirit tool, not only gave the entire spatial magic tool a stable space that was no less than that of a grotto heaven magic treasure, but Ruyu also seemed to have an innate talent for taking care of spirit herbs. The entire spirit herb garden of the Golden House was well taken care of by Ruyu. With the spirit herb garden of the entire Fei Ling Island as backup, the 3,000-year-old spirit herbs that Lu Ping had used to refine pills were not only replenished, but also greatly increased. If it was not for the fact that Lu Ping was worried that if he stored too many spirit herbs, the medicinal properties of the spirit herbs would be lost, Lu Ping would have harvested the entire spirit herb garden of Fei Ling Island. However, Lu Ping had control of the secret path to enter and exit Fei Ling Island. The cultivation resources on the island were almost at his disposal, so he was not in a hurry to exhaust the goose that laid the golden eggs. At the very least, as Ling Long was combing through the spirit veins of Fei Ling Mountain, she discovered a few more ore veins. Although they were not as valuable as mid-sized spirit stone mines, the ores contained within the ore veins were still quite good spiritual materials if they were refined. On this day, Lu Ping suddenly thought of something and called Ling Long out from the wine cauldron. He asked, although the spirit veins of Fei Ling Mountain have been severely damaged, there are still 7 large spirit veins. Could it be that no spirit-amassing pearls have been produced in them for the past thousands of years? Ling Long thought for a moment and replied, there might be, but the spirit veins of Fei Ling Mountain have been in a state of disorder all these years. Even if there are, there wouldn't be too many. Hearing this, Lu Ping's expression naturally became joyful. He asked, then can you excavate these spirit-amassing pearls through the spirit veins? Ling Long rolled her eyes and said, I don't have Lu Debao's ability. Otherwise, I would know if there are spirit-amassing pearls in these 7 spirit veins. Lu Ping nodded his head in disappointment. Even if there were spirit-amassing pearls in the spirit veins, not everyone had the ability to excavate them without destroying the spirit veins. Only Debao had this talent. However, Lu Ping was still a little unwilling to give up. He asked, then if I want to guide that mid-sized spirit stone mine into the House of Gold, do you think it's possible? Ling Long said gloomily, this Ling Long can indeed be of help, but are you sure that this strange heavenly abode magical item of yours can withstand the impact of the power of the earth veins of a mid-sized spirit stone mine? Moreover, back in the Yingtian dojo, it took 3 Dharma adepts to guide that mine, along with the help of core forging adepts like you. Are you sure that you can guide that mine into the house of gold by yourself? Tongjian Laozu and Sanming Laozu were fine, but Jiang Tianlin Laozu's strength had required the help of the first two. Guiding the spirit vein was not an easy task. However, at that time, there were a few other sects present and they could attack at any time. Jiang Tianlin Laozu had no choice but to cooperate with the other two sections. Now, it could be said that everything on Fei Ling Island was up to Lu Ping. Lu Ping could spend a few years to slowly move this spirit stone mine into the House of Gold. Lu Ping went to the House of Gold to ask Ru Yu. Ru Yu thought for a while and said, one of the important reasons why the treasure ship was able to pass through the stormy ocean and connect the two big cultivation worlds was that there was a large spirit vein in the treasure ship. Through a formation, it could be transformed into a continuous source of power for the treasure ship to move forward. Lu Ping said happily, you're saying that you need a spirit vein to consolidate the space in the House of Gold? Ru Yu nodded and said, that's right. If a spirit vein is led into Xiaogu Mountain, I can expand the power of the earth vein in Xiaogu Mountain after 2 years of recovery. In the end, the entire space in the House of Gold will be able to withstand the impact of the power of the earth vein when the medium spirit stone mine is led. However, the House of Gold is only a part of the treasure ship. At present, Xiaogu Mountain can only withstand one medium spirit vein. Lu Ping was overjoyed. He hurriedly used Linglong's help to separate a medium spirit vein from the main spirit vein of Fei Ling Mountain and led it into Xiaogu Mountain. After 2 years, Lu Ping had completely consolidated his cultivation. However, even with the help of Linglong and Ru Yu, it still took Lu Ping 2 years to lead the medium spirit vein into the House of Gold. The price was that Ru Yu, who had just recovered, fell into a weak state again. Lu Ping had to stay on top of Fei Ling Mountain for more than a year. After Ru Yu recovered with the help of the main spirit vein, he left Fei Ling Island through the teleportation formation. Chapter 897. After a flash of light, Lu Ping appeared on the teleportation platform on the cliff of the underwater abyss. Originally, this stone platform could only be used to teleport blood condensation realm cultivators. But when Lu Ping was combing through the earth veins with Ling Long's help, he discovered the control board for the teleportation array formation in Fei Ling Mountain. After some slight modifications, Lu Ping could teleport to this stone platform through the control formation plate. Otherwise, Lu Ping would have to spend a top-grade spirit stone to teleport to the bottom of the abyss through the teleportation formation in the depths of the pool. At the same time, he would have to use a restriction-breaking talisman to break the formation barrier and the restriction formation on the cave entrance. Only then would he be able to come out of the underwater abyss. However, if he wanted to enter Fei Ling Mountain again, Lu Ping would have to continue diving down to the bottom of the abyss. He would have to use the restriction-breaking talisman to break open the secret cave entrance and use a top-grade spirit stone to teleport to Fei Ling Mountain. Because this teleportation stone platform was 5,000 feet deep in the underwater abyss, Lu Ping didn't feel too much pressure. He only needed to rely on the waterproof moon pearl to float all the way up. It didn't take long before he could see the sunlight shining through the surface of the sea. Seeing that he was about to reach the surface of the sea, Lu Ping was in a good mood. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a muffled bang came from the far east of the sea. Is that direction Earth Island? Lu Ping's heart shook. Lu Ping had spent 20 years in seclusion this time. Could it be that the matter of Earth Island hadn't been resolved yet? Lyra Laozu tightly pursed her lips. Her 7-colored flame outlined a huge 7-colored fire shield in the air, annihilating the golden light coming from the opposite side. The 7-colored fire shield immediately turned into a flaming saber. It flew up and was about to slash at the golden-robed, hideous man in front of it. Unexpectedly, at this moment, a fireball suddenly exploded beside Lyra Laozu. Helplessly, Lyra Laozu dispersed the flaming saber again and formed a flaming armor around himself. Ha 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 ha. The golden-robed ugly man laughed wildly. He took advantage of Tian Qin Laozu's distraction to block the exploding fireball to close in. A golden light in his hand transformed into a 3-foot-long spear. With a swing of his arm, the spear was once again thrown towards Tian Qin Laozu. Tian Qin Laozu had no choice but to retreat and dodge. At this moment, a huge primitive crocodile suddenly broke out of the water under Tian Qin Laozu's feet. It opened its mouth and rushed towards Tian Qin Laozu's feet. Lyra Laozu extended her foot and tapped on the crocodile's mouth, and her whole body floated upwards again. Unexpectedly, the crocodile's huge tail slapped the surface of the sea, and its whole body suddenly shot upwards, following closely behind Lyra Laozu. At this time, the golden spear in the golden-robed ugly man's hand flickered with a golden light, making Tian Qin Laozu unable to figure out where the spear was going to stab. Helplessly, Tian Qin Laozu could only retreat again. Just as she dodged the crocodile's attack, the golden spear suddenly extended forward by 3 feet. From a spear, it became a long spear, stabbing towards Tian Qin Laozu. This time, Tian Qin Laozu could not dodge, and could only try to avoid the vital parts of his body, relying on the flaming armor to block. Puchi! With a burst of sparks, Tian Qin Laozu's flaming armor was pierced, and his left arm was pierced by the golden spear. Without waiting for blood to flow out, Tian Qin Laozu's wound was ignited with a line of fire. When the line of fire was extinguished, the entire wound had already recovered. Tian Qin, you bitch, you are no match for the old man. Let Jiang Tianlin come. The golden-robed ugly man laughed wildly, but his hands did not slow down at all. The golden spear in his hand became faster and faster, stabbing towards Tian Qin Laozu's body. The primitive crocodile under his feet also stared at Tian Qin Laozu. Every attack was able to greatly affect Tian Qin Laozu. Although the primitive crocodile had no intelligence, its cultivation level was that of a Dharma phase, and its innate fire magic was not weak. With the man and the beast working together, Tian Qin Laozu was actually forced to retreat. Tian Qin Laozu blocked the attacks of the man in front of him and scolded, "Ao Chuang, you are so shameless. You are the owner of the Golden Jiao Dragon Island, and you are famous in the North Sea, but you are a person who relies on numbers to win. If you have the ability, fight me alone. What's the use of a crazy crocodile?" The golden-robed ugly man was the owner of the Golden Jiao Dragon Island, Ao Chuang. Back then, Ao Chuang went to the Jade Swamp to capture a Dharma phase primitive crocodile as his spiritual companion. Unexpectedly, Lu Ping and Sang Yu worked together to ruin his plans. In desperation, the Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu could only capture 2 crocodiles that had not yet reached the Dharma phase and bring them back to the North Sea. Unexpectedly, the Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu was quite lucky. Not long after, one of the crocodiles actually advanced to the Dharma phase. Although this crocodile was far inferior to the one that Sang Yu had subdued, it still greatly increased the Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu's battle strength. The Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu, who had been greatly affected by the rise of Feng Xiutao and Jiang Tianlin, immediately regained his confidence. The Golden Jiao Dragon cried out in pain, but he did not retreat. Instead, he advanced, thrusting his golden spear towards Tian Qin Laozu's chest once again. With a clang, a copper cauldron flashed in front of Tian Qin Laozu, and a clear dent appeared on the copper cauldron. Tian Qin Laozu's face paled, and a mouthful of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. However, the Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu was not in a good state either. The 3 rainbow-colored flames exploded one after another, and the Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu's skin and flesh were lacerated by the spiritual flames that had reached the mid-grade of the heaven stage. However, the sinister smile that flashed across his face gave Tian Qin Laozu a bad premonition. A gust of cold wind came from behind. Tian Qin Laozu, who had been struck by the Golden Jiao Dragon Laozu's spear earlier, could not react for a moment. He thought to himself, not good. The flames all over his body flowed towards his back, wanting to forcefully receive the attack of the primordial fierce crocodile. This time, even if he did not die, he would be seriously injured. Just as this thought appeared in Tian Qin Laozu's mind, he heard the whistle of a sword that almost tore through the void coming from behind him. "Little thief, how dare you!" The golden Jiao dragon Laozu, who had just retreated with one blow, suddenly changed his expression. His previously confident look suddenly became pale. Tian Qin Laozu could not see the situation behind him, but he knew that there was help coming. He turned around and was about to join hands with the person to destroy the primordial fierce crocodile behind him. However, he saw two sword lights crisscrossing on the left and right. The huge crocodile's tail that was originally charging at Tian Qin Laozu flew up into the sky, followed by a deafening scream. The blood of the primordial fierce crocodile, whose tail had been cut off, rushed out from behind him like a blood wave. The surrounding seawater instantly turned blood red. The primordial fierce crocodile turned around and was about to dive into the sea. Tian Qin Laozu almost died. How could she allow this beast to escape? However, before she could make a move, the golden Jiao dragon Laozu, who had retreated, chased after her like a crazy demon. Tian Qin Laozu's heart moved, and she blocked the golden Jiao dragon Laozu head-on. However, the golden Jiao dragon Laozu was desperate at this time. Tian Qin Laozu retreated again and again, but she never let the golden Jiao dragon Laozu break through her obstruction. Another loud roar came from behind, but this time it came from the bottom of the sea. The primordial fierce crocodile that had just sunk to the bottom of the sea was suddenly entangled by the surrounding undercurrents. No matter how the primordial fierce crocodile struggled, its huge body involuntarily floated to the surface of the sea again. He let out a cold snort and turned around to glare at the golden Jiao dragon, who had just recovered from Tian Kong Laozu's attack. Who doesn't know that the water sword deity of your sect, spiritual master Lu Xianping, is an expert who can challenge Dharma adepts above his level? Even the elders of your sect were once beaten into a sorry state by him, with bruises all over their faces. To be able to defeat Ao Chuang's companion spirit beast is nothing to scoff at, let alone a sneak attack. A demon cultivator that was as strong as an iron tower spoke, his voice exploding in everyone's ears like a roar. This strong demon cultivator was the mid-Dharma stage demon cultivator that Tian Shui Laozu had met outside Huanyu Island, the giant whale demon king, Kong Jing. Fellow Taoist Kong Jing, you're wrong. I'm afraid none of you here are familiar with the huge gap between the core forging realm and the transcendence realm. Let me ask you, with such a huge gap, you're about to be killed by this little Taoist from Zhenling sect. You should feel ashamed. How can you have the face to criticize little Taoist Lu's sneak attack? Kong Jing snorted coldly and said, Brother Yujian is right. That Zhenling cultivator named Tian Shu should really commit suicide out of shame. The head of the Yujian sect, Yujian Laozu, only smiled slightly but did not say anything else. If someone were to take advantage of this and use it to instigate the relationship between the Yujian sect and Zhenling, it would be bad. As the two of them spoke, a few Dharma laws Laozu cultivators appeared from both sides. Lu Ping, who was watching from the side, sucked in a breath of cold air. They were actually all mid-Dharma laws Laozu cultivators. When Lu Ping was rushing over, he had noticed that there were people hiding in the void nearby, but he did not expect there to be so many of them. However, Lu Ping had noticed Tian Kong Laozu's aura. It seemed that because Tian Kong Laozu was about to be defeated, he wanted to make a move, which caused his aura to fluctuate slightly. It was also because he had confirmed that Tian Kong Laozu was here that Lu Ping dared to make a move so recklessly. Otherwise, Lu Ping would have used a safer method to help Tian Kong Laozu because of the cultivators hidden in the void. On the Zhenling side, Tian Kong Laozu was the leader. Tian Kong Laozu and Guo Tianshan Laozu were three Dharma laws adepts. The other sects, such as Xianling sect and Songhai sect, also had their own Dharma laws adepts and their respective mid-Dharma laws Laozu cultivators. The demon race's Dharma laws adepts also gradually began to gather, and the mid-Dharma laws adepts who had been hiding in the void earlier also revealed themselves. However, after these mid-Dharma laws Laozu cultivators revealed themselves, they looked at Lu Ping with a strange look in their eyes. However, these Laozu cultivators hid their feelings very well. Even the Xianling sect, the Hai Yan sect, and other allies were not willing to let the Zhanghai sect have the inheritance alone. On this day, Lu Ping placed the House of Gold on the spirit vein of the cave abode, and was helping Linglong connect the two mid-sized spirit veins on Huangli Island with one of the spirit veins in the House of Gold, so that the spirit qi of both parties could complement each other. At this moment, sixth brother Lei walked in mysteriously and said, "Someone is looking for you. Go and take a look." Lu Tianling Laozu smiled, then his face darkened. He said, "This time, I did not intend to let you participate, but you insisted on coming. Although your current strength can even kill Dharma adepts, there are mid-Dharma adepts from various sects participating in this trip to the vast sea treasure. Who knows, there might be people with ulterior motives who will go after you." Lu Ping nodded and said, "I understand. Don't worry, teacher. What's more, Elder Tiankong is going with me this time, so there's nothing for me to worry about." Lu Tianling Laozu smiled and said, "You're a smart one. However, this time when you enter the vast sea treasure, you have to be especially careful of the primordial crocodile clan practitioners. You killed the golden serpent Laozu's spirit companion beast, and his son, daughter, and adopted son also died by your hands. It can be said that there is an irreconcilable hatred between you and him." Lu Ping stepped on the ocean crossing boat and sped all the way to a deserted island near Huanyu Island. Tiankong Laozu had already been waiting there for a long time. Because the buildings on Huanyu Island had all collapsed because of the vast sea treasure that had suddenly been unearthed, the practitioners of the various sects had no place to stay. In addition, the sects and the North Sea Demon clan had to keep an eye on each other, so the practitioners of the various sects had settled on the deserted islands and coral islands near Huanyu Island. When Tiankong Laozu saw Lu Ping coming, he couldn't help but frown and say, "This time, the various sects set the rules for entering the vast sea treasure, requiring each sect to only allow one mid-Dharma adept to bring one core forging disciple. The sects of the North Sea and the Demon clan knew that your strength far exceeds that of a core forging cultivator of the same level, but they still set such a rule. The old man sensed that this was aimed at you, so the old man specially informed the sect leader that you're not allowed to come. I didn't think that you'd come yourself." Lu Ping smiled and said, "We still don't know what the situation inside the vast sea treasure is like, and the sects can't possibly come just for their disciples. As long as these people focus their energy on the vast sea treasure, then anything can happen. Furthermore, it won't be that easy for them to take the lives of their disciples." Tiankong Laozu laughed and said, "Looks like the old man is really getting old. I can't stand the vigor of you youngsters." "Fine, although the old man doesn't have long to live, other than the Dharma adepts, these people are nothing to the old man. This time, I'll let the old man go crazy with you." When Lu Ping saw Tiankong Laozu's wizen and old face, he sighed in dissatisfaction. Tiankong Laozu was originally the youngest disciple among the first generation of disciples that Jinling had reached the Dharma stage. His talent and training was not below that of Tianxiang Laozu. Originally, Jinling had high hopes for him, but after being schemed against by Xianling sect, his foundation was damaged, and he could only use longevity pills to prolong his life. Fortunately, Tiankong Laozu took the opportunity to break through to the mid-Dharma stage, which prolonged his lifespan by 200 years. Now, he only had 70 to 80 years left. Although Tiankong Laozu's words were passionate, Lu Ping could hear the love and concern in them. Obviously, Tiankong Laozu was willing to risk his life to protect Lu Ping. Lu Ping was touched, but he maintained a smile on his face and said, "You worry too much, Uncle Master. Uncle Master also knows that I have obtained many good things during my travels, including the Wonder Dew of 10,000 and the formula for the 30-year longevity pill. I have previously used the Wonder Dew of 10,000 to refine a 15-year longevity pill. This time, with the breakthrough in my training, I am confident that I can also refine a 20-year longevity pill. If I continue to practice my alchemy skills, when I can refine a 30-year longevity pill, I can consume 3 longevity pills. Even if I can't extend my lifespan by 90 years, I can at least extend it by 60 to 70 years." Seeing that Tiankong Laozu was only calmly listening to Lu Ping with a smile, Lu Ping continued, "If you have this 130 to 140 years buffer, Uncle Master might be able to break through to the late Dharma stage. If you can really overcome the second Thunder Trial and become the second Grand Practitioner of our sect, not only will there be hope for our sect to become a large sect, but you will also be able to extend your lifespan by another 200 years. After listening to Lu Ping, Tiankong Laozu laughed loudly and said, "You are an interesting kid, but these are all your own assumptions. The old man knows his own body very well. In these hundreds of years since he entered the mid-Dharma stage, the old man's training has not improved at all. This is a state where his body has aged to its limit. No matter how many longevity pills he has, he will only be able to prolong his life, let alone become a grand practitioner." Lu Ping could not help but feel anxious and said, "No matter what, we have to give it a try. Moreover, I have..." Tiankong Laozu waved his hand, intending to interrupt Lu Ping's words, and said, "There is no need to try. Even if the power of your 7 treasures Thunder Calabash is 10 times stronger, it will not be able to help the old man overcome the Thunder Trial. Let me put it this way, with the current state of the old man, I am afraid that he will not even be able to summon the Thunder Trial, so how will he overcome it?" Lu Ping originally wanted to say something, but he heard Tiankong Laozu say, "The demons and the Shanghai sect have already begun to move. We should follow them as well. We cannot fall behind. After all, this treasure was created by Shanghai Laozu alone." Chapter 900. The sudden appearance of the Changlu sword surprised Tiankong Laozu, but Laozu did not ask about the origin of the flying sword. He only said, "It really is Duobao boy. No wonder you were so eager to come this time." Lu Ping followed behind Laozu, and the two of them arrived at the foot of Huanyu Island's lone peak. At this time, Laozu from various sects had already surrounded the lone peak from all directions. There were mid-Dharma Laozu everywhere, so Lu Ping did not dare to use his divine will unscrupulously. He could only use his eyes to look around. He only saw that the 2 sects on his left and right were the giant whale demon King Kong Jing from the North Sea Abyss. Behind him was a similarly burly core forging adept, but this late core forging adept was a size smaller than Kong Jing. On the other side was the Sea Flame sect's mid-Dharma adept, Hai Hun Laozu. Behind him was also a late core forging adept. Although Lu Ping did not use his divine will, Tiankong Laozu did not have such scruples. After a while, he said, "It seems that there will be a fierce battle. The Shanghai sect sent Dongyi Laozu this time, Xian Ling sect sent Feng Shutao, and the Primordial Crocodile clan sent Ao Dian." Lu Ping thought about it and said, "Will these sects join forces?" Old Ancestor Heavenly Peace shook his head and said, "They naturally won't join hands. After all, the crime of colluding with the demon race isn't something that these few sects can bear. Our sect's abilities are extremely strong now, so not only will it not help the situation if I die, it will even incite an intense counterattack from our sect. However, a sneak attack from the dark is unavoidable. Especially you, they won't let you continue to grow." Pfft. A muffled sound was heard. Tiankong Laozu said, "The Shanghai sect can't wait to make the first move." As soon as Tiankong Laozu's voice faded, a few sounds rang out in succession. The other sects and the demon race also began to break the array formations they were facing. Tian Kong Laozu tossed the mountain-splitting axe into the size of an axe. Tian Kong Laozu held it in his hand and smashed it towards the array in front of him. With a loud rumbling sound, the spirit array barrier in a radius of several hundred feet began to shake violently, and cracks of various sizes appeared on the barrier wall in front of the two. Numerous divine wills were directed towards Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping. Clearly, it was because Tian Kong Laozu had caused too much of a commotion using the mountain-splitting hoe. Tian Kong Laozu stretched out his hand and waved it around. An invisible spirit array spread out in the air. The divine wills that came from all directions were all blocked outside the spirit array. Tian Kong Laozu clearly did not want to expose the existence of the mountain-splitting axe. After Tian Kong Laozu blocked the surrounding divine wills, he said, "I miscalculated. I didn't expect the power of the mountain-splitting axe to be so strong." When Tian Kong Laozu set up the spirit array barrier, Lu Ping had already taken out his flowing sword. With a "ft" sound, the flowing sword pierced the densest part of the cracks created by the mountain-splitting axe. In an instant, half of the sword blade went in. Tian Kong Laozu shouted, "At first glance, this flying sword is comparable to a spirit treasure like the mountain-splitting axe. It is said that the thin water flowing sword is the key left behind by Shanghai Laozu in the past. It seems that it truly lives up to its reputation." Lu Ping used the long stream sword to carve out a fist-sized hole in the protective array formation. Then, he sheathed the sword. With this hole, with the mountain-splitting axe's power, it would be easy for him to continue expanding the array formation. Without waiting for the formation to restore the hole, old ancestor Tian Kang's mountain-splitting battle-axe smashed onto it for the second time. After another violent tremor, this fist-sized hole had already expanded to the size of half a foot. With a thought, Lu Ping used the beautiful autumn dew sword in an attempt to expand the hole. However, the effect was minimal. It was only able to prevent the hole from restoring itself. Tian Kong Laozu chopped the third time, and the hole was once again widened. Lu Ping used both his hands to form dozens of seals. These were the seals that Lu Ping learned from the purple jade slip. However, the effect was still not great. Lu Ping could only give up. However, he didn't know that his next two attacks also surprised Tian Kong Laozu. The pair of beautiful autumn dew swords were only magic treasures that were condensed with 7 seals. They were not like the flowing sword, which was left behind by Shanghai Laozu to break the spirit array. However, in the hands of Lu Ping, he was still able to suppress the spirit array that was rapidly restoring itself. After that, he executed the dozens of restriction-breaking spells and similarly suppressed the restoration of the formation. One had to know that restriction-breaking spells were already extremely hard to learn. Even though they weren't as precious as the inheritance of restriction-breaking talismans, they were still hard to learn and even harder to master. Forefather Tian Kong didn't expect Lu Ping to actually have such a deep understanding of restriction-breaking spells. In the whole of Jinling, only Liang Tianfeng Laozu had such a deep understanding of seals. This time, if the demon race hadn't strongly requested for a mid-Dharma adept to bring along a core forging adept, Jinling might have called Tianfeng Laozu back from Central Plains. When Tian Kong Laozu smashed the 4th time, the whole hole was big enough for 2 people to go in. A strong spiritual aura spewed out from the hole. Chapter 901. This time, the human and demon clans worked together to excavate vast ocean Laozu's treasure. If there was anyone who was most unwilling, it would be the Shanghai sect. The Shanghai sect had always regarded vast ocean Laozu's treasure as their own. Therefore, they had been diligently searching for the whereabouts of the thin water flowing sword. For this reason, the Shanghai sect and Sung Lang sect were reunited. Together with Jinling sect and Xianling sect, they once again formed a tripartite alliance in the North Sea. However, before the Songhai sect could retrieve the long water-flowing sword, the demon clan had somehow confirmed the location of vast ocean Laozu's treasure. This caused the entire Songhai sect to panic. How could the Songhai sect, which had always regarded vast ocean Laozu's treasure as their own, allow others to touch it? Therefore, in the following years of fighting against the demon clan outside Huanyu Island, the demon clan contributed the most. However, the Songhai sect's performance only strengthened the demon clan and the North Sea sect's belief in vast ocean Laozu's treasure. For a time, the North Sea sects, which were originally meant to resist the demon clan, began to have their own plans. Naturally, they all had different ideas about vast ocean Laozu's treasure. The Songhai sect cultivator who came with Dongyi Laozu was Zhang Shi's disciple. This disciple was also at the peak of core forging. He was one of the best among the Songhai sect's third-generation disciples. He was also a seedling that the Songhai sect focused on cultivating to advance to the Dharma manifestation stage in the future. Just like how they cultivated Zhang Shi back then, the Songhai sect always liked to place their best disciples in the dark, hoping that they could avoid the eyes of other sects and grow up safely. Dongyi Laozu did not use the thin water-flowing sword. Instead, he used a treasure that looked like an iron medallion. This black iron medallion had 2 words written on it, Tiao Hai. Dongyi Laozu swung the iron medallion in his hand forward. A fine black water rushed out of the medallion and then split into 9. In the blink of an eye, 9 small holes were drilled into the protective wall in front of them. The 9 holes were distributed in a circular pattern, and after each hole was opened, the protective array formation did not begin to recover. At this moment, a flying sword flew out from Zhang Shi's disciple's hand and slashed at the array formation barrier. It cut through the barrier between the 2 small holes and connected the 2 holes together. Wasn't that flying sword the thin water sword or something else? The disciple slashed out 8 times in a row, cutting through the protective wall between the 9 circular holes. This way, the 9 holes formed a hole. Then, with a flying kick, the isolated protective wall was kicked away, forming a circular hole. If Lu Ping was here, he would definitely be surprised that not only was this disciple's swordsmanship exquisite, he also seemed to have mastered some secret method. The power of the thin water-flowing sword in his hands far exceeded the power of Lu Ping's flowing sword. However, the amount of vital energy consumed was far less than Lu Ping's. Dongyi Laozu saw the hole open and smiled. This is already the 5th protective wall broken. According to previous estimates, we are already past the halfway point of the mountain. We only need to break through 2 or 3 protective walls to reach the top of the lonely peak. Dongyi Laozu then looked at the disciple wielding the thin water sword and smiled. Zhou Tong, your swordsmanship is getting more and more exquisite. It seems that this time your teacher really came prepared when he recommended you to me. Letting you wield the thin water sword is also the right choice. The disciple called Zhou Tong took back the thin water sword and said, Grand Master, how is my swordsmanship compared to that Lu Xianping? Elder ancestor Dongyi was taken aback. He let out an imperceptible sigh. He turned around and smiled. The path of cultivation is still long. Whoever reaches the end will be the victor. Being strong now doesn't mean you will be strong in the future. Zhou Tong frowned. Dongyi Laozu didn't say it explicitly, but Zhou Tong could hear the meaning in Dongyi Laozu's words. At least for now, he still couldn't compare to that water sword immortal. Dongyi Laozu saw that Zhou Tong's expression didn't ease up and was afraid that he would have a knot in his heart. This Zhou Tong was one of the top 3rd-generation disciples of Songhai sect. The future of Songhai sect might depend on them. So he said, the cultivation world is full of danger. Those geniuses who die prematurely are never true geniuses. Lu Xianping, this person is too sharp. Zhou Tong naturally understood the meaning in Dongyi Laozu's words. He raised an eyebrow and said, Grand Master, are you saying that someone wants to kill him? Primordial crocodiles Ao Dian, Xian Ling sect's Feng Shutao, who doesn't want this future star of Jinling to die? Even the old man will not hesitate to kill him when the time comes. Dongi Laozu's murderous words made Zhou Tong's heart palpitate. Dongi Laozu turned to look at Zhou Tong and said, by the same logic, if there is a chance, you will also be a target for others to kill. So in Founder Songhai's cave abode, it's best that you don't leave his sight. As the two of them walked into the fifth barrier, a dull sound suddenly came from not far away. Dongi Laozu's footsteps paused. He said in surprise, someone is starting to break the fifth barrier. Could it be the demons? They've been preparing for so long. Could it be that the Changlu sword is really in the hands of the demons? Zhou Tong saw a spirit-nurturing great artifact floating in the middle of the barrier. He hurried forward to subdue it. After hearing Dongi Laozu's words, he asked, Grand Master, what treasures will be in Founder Songhai's cave abode? Why would the demons spend so much time preparing for this? Dongi Laozu thought for a moment. He felt that this matter was no longer a secret, so he asked, do you know about the 3 treasures of the Songhai? Zhou Tong looked in surprise at the black metal token in Dongi Laozu's hand. He said, this disciple knows. The 3 treasures of the Songhai are the Sea Transfer Token, the Songhai Bell, and the Cloud Sail. They are the 3 spiritual treasures that Founder Songhai used to dominate the North Sea cultivation world. Dongi Laozu smiled. That's right. The Sea Transfer Token has always been passed down in our sect. It's in the hands of the old man. Of the other 2, at least the Songhai Bell is in this relic. 1 spiritual treasure is enough for the demons to plot for so long. Moreover, Laozu's relic doesn't only have these things. Just the large spirit vein in this lone peak is enough for the sects of the North Sea to fight to the death. As he spoke, Patriarch Dongi pointed the sea-transferring medallion at the spirit-nurturing Dharma treasure that resembled a horsetail whisk. The violently trembling Dharma treasure suddenly stopped. Zhou Tong took the opportunity to put it away and heard Patriarch Dongi say with a laugh, your luck is not bad. This Dharma treasure has 7 treasure seals. But we have to speed up. The others are not too far behind us. Zhou Tong used the thin water sword to help Dongi Laozu continue to break the 6th barrier's restriction. At the same time, he asked, Grand Master, there is one thing that disciple doesn't understand. Since Founder Songhai founded our sect, why is his relic not in our sect, but in a place that even we don't know about? Zhou Tong's question seemed to make Dongi Laozu feel very embarrassed. In the end, he just said vaguely, even our ancestor Laozu didn't know about this. Maybe Founder Songhai had other difficulties. Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping were just about to break the 5th barrier when they heard a roar from afar. Tian Kong Laozu frowned and said, someone has entered the 5th barrier before us. I don't know if it's the demon race or Songhai sect. Lu Ping frowned and raised the flowing sword. He pierced 2 fist-sized holes in the protective wall that Laozu had cracked. He said, it should be Songhai sect. I always feel that there is a part of the flowing sword's power that hasn't been unleashed. And this hidden power seems to be specially designed to deal with this relic. Only Songhai sect's inherited secret technique can activate it. That Songhai sect can use the thin water sword's restraining function to the greatest extent. As long as the swordsman isn't too weak, he might be even more powerful than me. Tian Kong Laozu nodded and said, that's nothing. But this time, Dong Yi's arrival reminded the old man of a legend about the magic treasure that Songhai Laozu used to roam the North Sea. Lu Ping blinked and said, the 3 treasures of the Songhai, the Sea Transfer Order, the Songhai Bell, and the Cloud Sail. Tian Kong Laozu nodded and said, each of these 3 treasures is only a first tribulation spiritual treasure. But when they combine, their power is even greater than a second tribulation spiritual treasure. Among them, only the Songhai Bell is Songhai Laozu's true spiritual treasure. It's also the most powerful treasure among the 3 treasures. Lu Ping had heard of the Tianxian sect's Songhai Laozu's 7 folding fans. When they combine, they are more powerful than a second tribulation spiritual treasure. And Songhai Laozu has been planning to make them go through the second thunder tribulation. So when they combine, even a pure yang spiritual treasure that has gone through the third thunder tribulation may not be a match for it. Therefore, when Lu Ping heard Tian Kong Laozu mention the three treasures of the Songhai, Lu Ping was not surprised. He just asked, "Martial Uncle Master, do you mean that these three treasures are in Songhai Laozu's inheritance?" Tian Kong Laozu shook his head and said, "No, at least the sea transferring order has always been in the hands of Songhai sect. And Dongyi Laozu is in charge of the sea transferring order in this generation of Songhai sect. The spiritual treasures in this inheritance may be the Songhai Bell and the Yun Fan. But it's said that Yun Fan has been given away by Songhai Laozu. I don't know whether it's true or not." The two broke the sixth barrier. Tian Kong Laozu finally smiled and said, "Finally, my luck has changed. I've come across some good things." But as soon as Tian Kong Laozu's voice fell, a loud noise came from the other side of this space. Old ancestor Tian Kong and Lu Ping looked at each other, and both of them quickly went forward to suppress the two glossy green ghost fires that were chasing each other in midair. Just before the protective wall shattered, old ancestor Tian Kong had already put away the ghost spirit fires and started to be on guard against the incoming people. Clatter! The wall was completely destroyed, and two burly men walked into the wall one after another. They happened to see Lu Ping putting away a strange green flame into his space pouch. Chapter 902. So it's fellow Taoist Tian Kong. The newcomer laughed, but when he saw the will-o-wisp disappear from Lu Ping's hand, his eyes narrowed. His ferocious aura and loud laughter caused the surrounding walls to vibrate. "Demon King Kong, you seem to have gone in the wrong direction. That's why you're late." Tian Kong Laozu smiled. The newcomer was the great whale demon King Kong Jing, Laozu. The burly man standing behind him looked very similar to Kong Jing, but his physique was slightly smaller than Kong Jing. Just as Kong Jing and Tian Kong Laozu were confronting each other, Kong Jing looked at Lu Ping with surging battle intent. Lu Ping, on the other hand, stood quietly behind old ancestor Tian Kong, his deep gaze fixed on monster King Kong Jing. He basically ignored the core forging monster cultivator's provocation. Demon King Kong Jing and old ancestor Tian Kong looked at each other silently for a moment. Suddenly, a smile appeared on Demon King Kong Jing's face, and he said, "We have indeed come to the wrong place, Dao friend Tian Kong, please forgive us." Tian Kong Laozu also smiled and said, "The higher you go, the narrower the lonely peak becomes. It's inevitable that Demon King Kong made a mistake." Kong Jing shifted his gaze to Lu Ping and said, "You must be the famous water sword immortal, fellow Taoist Lu Xianping?" Monster King Kong Jing addressed Lu Ping as fellow Taoist, clearly putting Lu Ping on the same level as himself. Although the humans and monsters were enemies, it was precisely because of this that Monster King Kong Jing's words elevated Lu Ping's status even higher. A person's value could only be fully reflected by the opponent's affirmation. Therefore, not only did Lu Ping feel flattered by Kong Jing's action, even Tian Kong Laozu was surprised. Lu Ping quickly said, "I don't deserve to be called a fellow Taoist. I am Lu Xianping." Not bad indeed. "I just don't know if you can come out of this battle alive. Fellow Taoist Ao Dian has always been thinking about you, little friend." Kong Jing nodded approvingly and said, not bad indeed." After Demon Monarch Kong Jing finished speaking, he actually brought the core forging stage giant whale demon back through the open passageway. Lu Ping drew a hand seal in front of him and slapped it on the protective barrier where Kong Jing and the others had left. The damaged protective barrier that was shrinking instantly doubled in size, and in just a few moments, it was as good as new. This demon King Kong Jing is quite interesting. He's quite ambitious. Old ancestor Tian Kong said thoughtfully as he glanced at the battle technique barrier that Lu Ping had repaired and was in perfect condition. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, Grand Uncle Master, what did Kong Jing say to you just now? Tian Kong Laozu looked at Lu Ping in surprise and said, You can sense our secret voice transmission just now. Lu Ping nodded and said, I can only sense your conversation, but I can't know what you are talking about. Tian Kong Laozu praised, I didn't expect your divine sense to be no weaker than the old man. No wonder. On the other side of the array formation, after Demon Monarch Kong Jing and the other whale demon passed through the array formation, Demon Monarch Kong Jing looked at the rapidly recovering array formation in silence. The moment the barrier wall recovered, Kong Jing suddenly said, You don't seem to be convinced? The giant whale demon behind Kong Jing said, Father seems to think too highly of Lu Xianping. Kong Jing didn't seem surprised at all. He just said indifferently, You want to challenge him? The giant whale demon hesitated for a moment and finally nodded. Demon Monarch Kong Jing walked towards another stronghold. He said coldly, You're courting death. The giant whale demon's face turned red. Seeing that Demon King Kong Jing was about to break the protective formation, he quickly stepped forward and said, Even if I'm not Lu Xuanping's match, what about Tian Kong? He's just a man who was lucky enough to live for a few years. With Father's cultivation at the peak of the mid-Dharma stage, you can definitely defeat Tian Kong. How could you let the two of them take the Jade Phosphorus Ghost Fires? Those are two low-grade heaven-level spiritual fires, and they are exactly what the giant whale tribe needs. Why do you think? Kong Jing Laozu stopped the skyquake hammer he had just taken out and suddenly turned to look at the giant whale demon behind him. He shouted, If I try to snatch them, you will be the first to die. How many moves do you think you can take from Lu Xianping? The giant whale demon was stunned by his father's roar and could only stare blankly at the giant whale demon king in front of him. Seeing his son like this, Kong Jing couldn't help but sigh in his heart, This son of mine has been in the deep-sea demon territory for too long. Although his cultivation isn't too bad, it can only be described as not too bad compared to Lu Xianping, his brain is really too simple. It looks like it's time to let him go out and train by himself. Lu Ping controlled the flowing sword to help Tian Kong Laozu expand the small hole in the sixth barrier wall. He said, From what Kong Jing said, it seems that Ao Dian wants to harm me. But why did he warn me like this? Could it be that the giant whale tribe and the primordial giant crocodile are enemies? Old ancestor Tian Kong shook his head with a smile and said, It's not a grudge, it's just that the giant whale demon race has thoughts of replacing him. That's why I said that Demon King Kong Jing's ambition is not small. Lu Ping was surprised. He said, The giant whale demon tribe is a match for the primordial giant crocodile? Did Demon King Kong Jing discuss this with you, Uncle Master? Tian Kong Laozu said, No, this giant whale demon seems to have some kind of detection treasure on him that can detect the traces of the Jade Phosphorus Ghost Fire. Previously, these two came for the Jade Phosphorus Ghost Fire, but we beat them to it. Kong Jing wanted to exchange it with me after this. As he spoke, Laozu's mountain-splitting axe opened a hole in the barrier wall big enough for one person to pass through. He was the first to enter, and Lu Ping followed closely behind. However, just as Laozu stepped into the sixth barrier wall, and Lu Ping was still standing in the fifth barrier wall, two loud explosions sounded from the sixth and fifth barrier wall. Tian Kong Laozu shouted, Not good, come in quickly. But it was too late. When the two explosions sounded in the two barriers almost simultaneously, Lu Ping already knew that he had fallen into someone else's trap. Sure enough, as soon as Laozu's voice fell, the explosion of spells came from the sixth barrier wall, and the hole in the barrier wall in front of Lu Ping rapidly shrank. Lu Ping looked back and saw Feng Shutao sneering as he rushed out of the broken barrier wall and pounced at Lu Ping. Feng Shutao, how dare you cooperate with the primordial giant crocodile clan? How will your Xianling sect survive in the North Sea in the future? Will Dao Sheng forgive you? Tian Kong Laozu's roar came from the sixth barrier wall, but that didn't stop Feng Shutao from walking towards Lu Ping with a sinister smile on his face. But just as Feng Shutao was thinking about how to deal with this disciple that both Lu Tianling and Jiang Tianlin thought highly of, Feng Shutao's expression suddenly changed. A seven-colored light suddenly rose from Lu Ping's left hand, and he slammed his palm on the edge of the hole. The rapidly shrinking hole suddenly began to expand again, but Lu Ping's right hand shone with a six-colored light and slammed it on the hole again, and the hole expanded even faster. Lu Ping lowered his head and jumped through the hole. Feng Shutao's exasperated howl came from behind. Seven-colored restriction-breaking talisman. That's impossible. As soon as Lu Ping passed through the hole, Feng Shutao's attack came one after another. The flowing sword in Lu Ping's hand suddenly turned into countless rays of sword light. Each ray of sword light carried a ray of sword light, and they weaved a huge sword net behind him, firmly blocking the hole in the barrier wall. Crackle, crackle. A series of cracking sounds could be heard. The sword net Lu Ping had set up was easily shattered by Feng Shutao. The aftermath of the spell continued to hit Lu Ping's body. At this moment, Lu Ping didn't even have time to activate his protective magic treasure. There was a muffled hum, and Lu Ping's face turned pale. He flew back, but Lu Ping still managed to block Feng Shutao's attack. Then Lu Ping heard Tian Kong Laozu's roar. Laozu's cry was mixed with the roar. Lu Ping turned around and saw Ao Dian Laozu rolling on the ground. The huge axe was flying back, and Ao Dian Laozu looked at the axe flying back to Tian Kong Laozu with a face full of fear. This is impossible, how can you have a second tribulation spirit treasure? Ao Dian Laozu struggled to get up from the ground. Although Tian Kong Laozu's attack made Ao Dian Laozu look very miserable, it didn't actually do much damage to him. However, the impact of Tian Kong Laozu's mountain axe was too great. In just one exchange, Ao Dian Laozu and Feng Shutao's carefully planned ambush failed. Not far away, Feng Shutao was about to enter the barrier that Lu Ping had reopened when he heard Ao Dian Laozu's roar. What, second tribulation spirit treasure? Didn't Jinling only have 4 spirit treasures? When did another one appear, and it's even a second tribulation spirit treasure? Could it be that Tian Xiang Laozu has given all the spirit treasures that Taishan Laozu inherited to Tian Kong? Feng Shutao's feet stopped moving. Without hesitation, Lu Ping charged at Feng Shutao. As long as he could use the formation to block Feng Shutao, the longer he could delay Feng Shutao in the gap, the more likely this ambush plan by Xian Ling sect and the primordial crocodile clan would fail. In fact, Tian Kong Laozu might even be able to turn the tables. It was impossible. When Ao Dian saw the second tribulation spirit treasure in Tian Kong Laozu's hand, he knew that today's plan was not going to succeed. Even if he could kill Lu Xianping, Tian Kong would lose his restraints. With a second tribulation spirit treasure in his hand, besides Dharma adepts, who else on Lone Peak could stop him? Ao Dian Laozu didn't even look at Feng Shutao, who was charging at Lu Ping to block the gap. He turned around and jumped into the protective formation that he had broken earlier. He even cast a spell that restored the formation to its original state. Seeing that Ao Dian had retreated, Tian Kong Laozu immediately retracted his aura and came to the side of the hole that Lu Ping was blocking Feng Shutao from entering. He raised his hand and signaled Lu Ping not to block and let Feng Shutao in. Chapter 903. Ao Dian Laozu did not feel any pressure when he retreated. He had colluded with the human cultivators to plot against the human cultivators. After all, he was just using them as a tool, and he could even cause internal strife among the human race. There was no need for him to feel guilty about anything. It was really difficult for Feng Shutao, who was still trying his best to attack the barrier entrance that was shrinking under Lu Ping's obstruction. He was still planning to attack Tian Kong Laozu, but he did not know that Ao Dian Laozu had already disappeared without a trace. Ao Dian, please wait for a moment. The old man will be here soon. Even though Feng Shutao could only use 50 to 60% of his abilities in front of the barrier entrance, Lu Ping was still in danger under Feng Shutao's attack. Seeing Tian Kong Laozu's signal, Lu Ping began to go easy on Ao Dian. He pretended to be unable to take it anymore, but he used his divine consciousness to seal the entrance to prevent Feng Shutao from discovering that Ao Dian had retreated. After hearing Feng Shutao's roar, Lu Ping immediately took advantage of the situation. He stomped on the ground and borrowed the momentum from Feng Shutao's impact to throw himself backward. It looked like he was really sent flying by someone. Feng Shutao was overjoyed and rushed in. He shouted, "Ao Dian, my friend, the old man is here to help you." But what he saw was Lu Ping's mocking and pitiful expression. The mountain-splitting axe had expanded to 30 feet in the sky, and the blade alone took up 2/3 of its length. "Ao Dian, you've tricked me!" Feng Shutao roared in anger. Tian Kong Laozu's attack was already aimed at Feng Shutao, who was caught off guard. Feng Shutao barely managed to use the Happy Rod, a first disaster spiritual treasure that Laozu had given him after he had reached the mid-Dharma stage. Dang! The sound of metal clashing made Lu Ping want to plug his ears. The merry pestle let out a series of whines as it was sent flying away by the axe. Feng Shutao didn't manage to dodge in time, and blood splashed everywhere. His entire left forearm was cut off by the remaining power of the axe, and the dust that was stirred up by the axe covered the entire space. When the dust settled, there was no trace of Feng Shutao in the 6th barrier. All that was left was a pool of blood on the ground and a forearm rolling in the dust. Although the fight had been short, both Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping had consumed a large amount of their true origin energy and magic power. Now that the summit of the Lone Peak was right in front of them, they knew that sharpening one's axe wouldn't delay the work of cutting firewood. So, they took elixirs in the stronghold and held spirit stones in their hands to recover. Perhaps it was because when Ao Dian Laozu and Feng Shutao had set up the trap, they didn't take out the treasures in the 6th layer's formation space to make it look more realistic. At least, Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu were relieved to see the spirit sealing box, which had been knocked to the ground by the great fight but hadn't been broken. Tian Kong Laozu opened the spirit sealing box, and his eyes lit up. Then, under Lu Ping's curious gaze, he threw one of the items into Lu Ping's hands and said, "Let's keep these 2 items for ourselves. One for each of us." Lu Ping took the item that looked like a scroll. It seemed to be a charm, but Lu Ping didn't know what it was. So, he looked at Tian Kong Laozu with an inquisitive look. Tian Kong Laozu was pouring his true origin energy into the same scroll. Tian Kong Laozu saw that Lu Ping didn't know what it was, so he explained, "This is called a cloning charm. You only need to pour your true origin energy into it and activate it with your divine will. Then, you can turn it into an outer body clone with the same appearance as you. Although it doesn't have intelligence and can only attack crazily, and it doesn't have any magical power, it can be a good shield in a crisis. It can save your life." Lu Ping looked at the talisman in his hand with surprise. The blue-purple true origin in his hand surged out and he poured his own true origin into the talisman. Although the clone talisman could only be used once and had many restrictions, it was still a life-saving technique. Furthermore, judging from the 7-colored light on the surface of the talisman, the value of this clone talisman was most likely not inferior to that of the 7-colored restriction-breaking talisman. Because of the battle just now and the refining of this cloning charm, a lot of time had passed. After the 2 of them recovered, they began to break the 7th barrier. This was the last barrier on Lonely Peak. After breaking the 7th barrier, they would reach the top of Lonely Peak. In the 7th barrier, Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu had just put away a spirit-raising magic weapon. Lu Ping seemed to hear something and hesitated slightly. Tian Kong Laozu saw this and asked, "What's wrong? Did you find something?" Lu Ping nodded and patted his chest. Linglong's wine cauldron flew out of the core space. Tian Kong Laozu saw this wine cauldron was a novelty, but he was not surprised. He said, "This is the spirit treasure wine cauldron you subdued in Ingtian dojo?" Linglong was well behaved. She knew that the person in front of her was a powerful cultivator. She stood up on the edge of the wine cauldron and said, "Linglong greets Laozu." Lu Ping knew that they had wasted enough time, so he asked, "Linglong, did you find anything?" Linglong reached out and patted, and the wine cauldron fell from midair. After a while, Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu both noticed the abnormality below. "I didn't expect there to be a mineral vein here." When Tian Kong Laozu saw Linglong's wine cauldron fall to the ground, he immediately noticed the movement of the earth veins under his feet. Tian Kong Laozu cultivated the fifth earth true body technique, which was one of the 5 true skills of Xunling, so he was extremely sensitive to the changes of the earth veins. Soon, he found that there was a mini mineral vein hidden in the ground under his feet. Lu Ping explained with a smile, "Linglong is not actually doing this for this mineral vein. She can use this mineral vein to explore the direction of the Lone Peak's earth veins. From there, she can determine the location of the Lone Peak's spirit vein, and to a certain extent, exert influence on the spirit vein." The earth veins often formed a huge underground network underground. Whether it was the spirit vein, the spirit stone vein, or the spirit material vein, they were all inextricably linked to the earth veins. Linglong could directly trace the direction of the earth veins through these extended relationships, and to a certain extent, she could also sort out the earth veins. Tian Kong Laozu immediately understood that Lu Ping was thinking about the large spirit vein in the Lone Peak. At this time, Linglong suddenly climbed out of the wine cauldron and said, "Debao seems to have found the spirit vein, but he himself is trapped by the broken restriction formation deep underground." Lu Ping was shocked, and said, "How is it, is there any danger?" Linglong frowned, and said, "I'll try." After saying that, the whole wine cauldron began to rotate above the ground, and below the wine cauldron was the location of the mini mineral vein. Lu Ping's divine sense could only go down a few dozen feet with the earth vein, and then it could not go any further. However, Tian Kong Laozu's face was full of surprise. When Lu Ping looked down, he saw that the part of Tian Kong Laozu's feet that was in contact with the ground had been covered by a layer of yellow fifth earth true essence. In just a moment, Linglong breathed a sigh of relief, and climbed out, and said, "Thanks to Laozu's help, Linglong, and Debao also has a 3-colored restriction breaking talisman on him, he has broken free from the broken restriction formation." Lu Ping breathed a sigh of relief, but then he heard Linglong said, "Someone on the Lone Peak has reached the peak first." As soon as Linglong's voice fell, a deafening sound of metal suddenly exploded. Dang! Linglong, who was clinging to the edge, fell into the wine cauldron, and even Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping were shocked by the sudden sound of the bell. Fortunately, both of them were extraordinary cultivators. Tian Kong Laozu was the first to wake up, and then Lu Ping also shook his head hard. "The sea bell has been rung." Tian Kong Laozu held the mountain-splitting axe in his hand tightly, and walked towards the 7th layer of the barrier. Lu Ping thought for a moment and said, "Martial uncle, since the sea bell has been rung, it proves that there is more than one clan that issued the sea bell. I'm afraid the sea bell has already caused a fight, so we don't have to worry." Tian Kong Laozu nodded, and said, "Even so, we have to be here, or we won't even be qualified to covet the sea bell." Rumble. The mountain-splitting axe fiercely smashed towards the 7th layer of the barrier, and Lu Ping's flowing sword followed closely behind. But this time, both of them left a way out, as they were afraid that they would be surrounded by the people on the peak the moment they broke through the barrier. Although the 7th layer of the barrier was stronger than the previous few layers, for the two of them, it was only a matter of time. However, just as the two of them broke through the barrier, dang! Another loud sound rang out. This time, Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping were prepared, but they still had a splitting headache from the sound of the bell. The sound of the bell was too coincidental, and Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping did not dare to be careless. They endured the waves of attacks from their divine senses, and took out the mountain-splitting axe and fated person in autumn waters. Unexpectedly, no one took the opportunity to enter the barrier to launch a sneak attack. On the contrary, on the peak outside the barrier, the roar of the chaotic battle became louder. Tian Kong Laozu was the first to walk out of the barrier, and Lu Ping followed closely behind. In the middle of the peak, a huge bronze bell was suspended in the air. The huge body of the bell was engraved with countless mysterious runes and wave-like carvings. It was the legendary Sea Bell. At this time, fighting around the Sea Bell were Dong Yi Laozu of the Blue Sea Sect, Ao Dian Laozu of the Primordial Giant Crocodile Clan, Demon King Kong Jing of the Giant Whale Demon Clan, and Hai Hun Laozu of the Sea Flame Sect. The four mid-Dharma Laozu were fighting together, and each of them had a First Tribulation spiritual treasure in their hands. In terms of cultivation, Demon King Kong Jing was the most profound, but in terms of strength, Dong Yi Laozu of the Blue Sea Sect was the first to reach the peak with the Sea Transferring Order, and was the first to ring the Sea Bell. Through the Sea Transferring Order and the Changlu Sword, he had already gained some support from the sea. Hai Hun Laozu had an easy journey. Even though he did not have the thin water sword, nor did he have the full preparation of the demon clan, nor did he have the powerful spiritual treasure of Jinling, he was the third person to reach the peak. At that time, Ao Dian had already fought with Dong Yi Laozu. Even though Hai Hun Laozu also coveted the Sea Bell, at this time, he had no choice but to join forces with Dong Yi Laozu in an attempt to expel Ao Dian. Unexpectedly, at this time, Kong Jing Laozu suddenly attacked, and the whole scene suddenly became chaotic. Kong Jing Laozu took advantage of the chaos to ring the Sea Bell. To everyone's surprise, Patriarch Kong Jing also gained part of the Tsanghai Bell's recognition, and he rang the bell for the second time. Chapter 904. Among the three treasures of the Tsanghai, only the Tsanghai Bell was Laozu's natal spiritual treasure. Half of the reason why the three treasures of the Tsanghai were so famous was due to the Tsanghai Bell. Among the three treasures of the Tsanghai, the Sea Transfer Token was good at attacking, the Cloud Sail was good at defending, and only the Tsanghai Bell was really good at attacking and defending. However, what really made the Tsanghai Bell famous was the battle when Mara besieged the Tsanghai sect more than 10,000 years ago. After the establishment of the Tsanghai sect, Laozu wandered in the North Sea. His whereabouts were always uncertain. All the affairs of the Tsanghai sect were taken care of by his friends and followers, but he rarely cared about the situation of the Tsanghai sect. After that, the calamity of Mo Luo broke out. At that time, the calamity of Mo Luo targeted the newly established Azure Sea sect. The Tsanghai sect was in an emergency. The cultivators of the Tsanghai sect had no choice but to ask Tsanghai Laozu for help and ignite the talisman left by Tsanghai Laozu. When Tsanghai Laozu received the news, the Tsanghai sect was already in danger. At the critical moment, Tsanghai Laozu came from overseas alone. With the Cloud Sail as defense and the Sea Transfer Token as attack, he used the Thin Water Long Stream Sword to kill all the way through Mara's encirclement and returned to the Tsanghai sect. The morale of the Tsanghai sect was greatly boosted. In this battle, there were 5 or 6 blood Mara and above that died in the hands of Tsanghai Laozu, and there were countless other major and minor repairs. However, not only was the encirclement of Mara not lifted, but more and more reinforcements surrounded the Tsanghai sect even tighter. Just when the Tsanghai sect began to be filled with an atmosphere of helplessness, Tsanghai Laozu made a move again. The huge Tsanghai Bell floated above the sect protection array of the Tsanghai sect. Just when the Tsanghai sect and Mara who surrounded the Tsanghai sect were at a loss, the Tsanghai Bell suddenly rang. Dang! The loud sound shook almost 1,000 miles. A ripple visible to the naked eye spread out from the center of the ocean bell. All the Azuras who probed the sea bell with their divine senses were all shaken by the sudden ringing of the sea bell, and their divine senses were all injured. The more serious ones even turned into idiots, and some even bled to death from their 7 orifices. However, this was not what Sin was afraid of. The most terrifying thing was the reaction of the demonic cultivators hidden among the Asuras when the sea bell rang. Mara was originally one body, but the number of demonic cultivators was usually far less than the Asura. However, the damage caused by demonic cultivators was not much less than the Asura, and the true reason why demonic cultivators were able to cause fear in the cultivation world was because of their insane innate ability to devour souls. Devil cultivators were born with tyrannical soul remembrance and were extremely aggressive. They often killed people without even realizing it. Moreover, they were often the eyes and ears of the Shura, and could often cause the Shura to display several times the damage. Be it human or demon cultivators, when faced with the soul-devouring abilities of fiendish cultivators or blood fiends, they would usually choose to retreat. In all the previous disasters of Mara, the demonic cultivators did not cause as much damage as the Asuras, but the fear they caused was far greater than the demonic cultivators. However, the moment the sea bell rang, the ones who suffered the most were not the Asuras, but the demonic cultivators hiding among the Asuras. Countless sharp screams came one after another, and the black fog that wrapped around the demonic cultivators collapsed in midair. Within a radius of 30 miles, almost no demonic cultivators survived, including 3 blood Shuras and 1 jade Shura. Dang! The second sea bell rang, and within a radius of 50 miles, only 2 jade demonic cultivators escaped with serious injuries. As for the remaining 5 blood demonic cultivators, 3 of their heads exploded on the spot, and the remaining 2 died silently. Dang! When the third sea bell rang, within a radius of 100 miles, hundreds of ordinary demonic cultivators were killed or injured. In addition to the number of dead and injured Shuras, after the third sea bell rang, the tens of thousands of Mara cultivators who had besieged the Blue Sea sect for nearly a month collapsed on the spot, and the siege of the Blue Sea sect was easily resolved by Ocean Laozu in such a shocking way. However, the strange thing was that although the sea bell was a powerful first calamity spiritual treasure, it should not have such a strong power. Ocean Laozu had also fought with others, but the sea bell had never exerted such great power again. It was not until Ocean Laozu fought with Mara several times that the sea bell finally regained its power in the Blue Sea sect when facing demonic cultivators. Only then did Ocean Laozu realize that the originally strong power of the sea bell was actually directed towards demonic cultivators. In the process of forging his own natal spiritual treasure, Ocean Laozu might have added some strange spiritual materials, or he might have unintentionally catered to some secret recipe. In short, the sea bell possessed a special technique that could cause great harm to demonic cultivators, and even Ocean Laozu himself could not explain the reason for this mutation. After the Battle of the Blue Sea sect, in order to resist the calamity of Mara, the cultivation world of the North Sea once had a craze of forging clock-type magic treasures. However, there had never been a treasure like the sea bell. Because of this, the value of the sea bell was even more obvious. Unfortunately, Ocean Laozu's whereabouts were uncertain. In the end, no one knew where he went, and the sea bell also disappeared with him until Ocean Laozu's cave abode rose strangely from the bottom of the Earth Island. As Ocean Laozu's natal spiritual treasure, the sea bell was naturally not something that anyone could ring. The Blue Sea sect, where Dongi Laozu came from, regarded itself as the inheritor of Ocean Laozu. It also had the sea transferring token, one of the 3 treasures of the sea, and Ocean Laozu's usual flying sword, the thin water sword, could ring the sea bell was naturally not surprising. However, Kong Jing Laozu could also ring the sea bell. What was going on? Dongi Laozu looked at Kong Jing Laozu with a livid face. The sea transferring token in his hand led several streams of water in the void, rushing towards Kong Jing Laozu from different directions. Kong Jing Laozu laughed loudly. With the sky quake hammer in his hand, he countered without showing any signs of weakness. The two immediately fell into a stalemate. Ao Dian Laozu and Hai Han Laozu saw that Dongyi Laozu and Kong Jing Laozu were suddenly fighting without a care in the world. Unexpectedly, the two tacitly did not make a move. Instead, they hit the sea bell floating in the sky at the same time. Poof! Poof! Two muffled sounds were heard. Although the sea bell was continuously shaken by the two's continuous attacks, the sound was not like a bell being struck. It was more like a fart. Ao Dian Laozu turned to Kong Jing, who was fighting with Dongyi Laozu, and said, "Kong-san, what is going on? How can you ring the sea bell?" Kong Jing laughed and said, "This is no secret. Si Laozu is a senior of my giant whale demon clan. The Si sect is a natal spiritual treasure that Si Laozu painstakingly refined. As a descendant of the giant whale demon clan, I am naturally qualified to inherit the sea bell." What? Si Laozu was actually a demon clan cultivator, and a giant whale demon clan cultivator at that? Not only Ao Dian Laozu and Hai Han Laozu, but even Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping, who had just entered the mountain peak from the stronghold, were also in disbelief. The founder of the Si sect, Laozu, was actually a demon cultivator. Could there be a bigger joke in the North Sea cultivation world than this? Almost everyone's eyes were on Dongyi Laozu, who was fighting with Dongyi Laozu. Dongyi Laozu's face was livid, and the spiritual treasure in his hand was being wielded more and more fiercely, but he did not refute Kong Jing. Hai Han Laozu hesitated for a moment, but still asked, "Daoist Dongyi, is Kong Demon King's words false?" Dongyi Laozu's face was so gloomy that it was about to drip water. He looked at Kong Jing Laozu coldly and said, "My sect's ancestral spiritual treasure is not something you can lay a finger on." Dongyi Laozu did not directly answer Hai Han Laozu's question, but everyone present was smart and had already believed most of Kong Jing Laozu's words. Ao Dian Laozu suddenly turned around and asked, "Kong-san, did you also reveal to him about the Si sect's ancestral spiritual treasure?" Kong Jing Laozu denied and said, "Daoist Ao, please be careful with your words. I did not know about the Si sect's ancestral spiritual treasure beforehand." Ao Dian Laozu said angrily, "Bullshit, if you did not deliberately tell your son when he was passing by, how would he know about the ancestral spiritual treasure?" Kong Jing's face changed, and he said, "Ao Chuang dared to pry into our clan's secret. Daoist Ao Dian, is this Ao Chuang's idea alone, or the primordial giant crocodile clan's idea?" Ao Dian Laozu was stunned. He did not expect Kong Jing to unintentionally use his words against him. He could only say angrily, "You were the one who did not pay attention to your words, and others heard it. Who can you blame for this?" Demon King Kong Jing snorted coldly and jumped up to ring the sea bell again, but he was held back by Dongyi Laozu. Although Demon King Kong Jing's strength was slightly better than Dongyi Laozu, there was a limit to his strength. In front of Dongyi Laozu's mutually destructive fighting style, his hands and feet were tied. Although the sea bell could not be sounded by anyone other than the Si sect and the giant whale demon clan, it did not mean that the sea bell could not be subdued by outsiders. It was just that the difficulty of subduing it was higher than the difficulty of these two. Tian Kong Laozu was about to enter the battlefield with the mountain-splitting axe in his hand, but Lu Ping unexpectedly grabbed his sleeve and said, "Grand Master, please wait, now is not a good time to intervene." Tian Kong Laozu was a little confused, and said, "If we don't intervene now, I'm afraid the sea bell will be taken by others." Lu Ping gestured towards the group of four and said, "Grand Marshal Uncle, I'm afraid these people already know that you have a second tribulation spirit treasure. In terms of strength, I'm afraid Grand Marshal Uncle is the strongest. However, none of them can do anything to each other. If you intervene now, they will definitely join forces to deal with you first." Lu Ping nodded and said, "Grand Marshal Uncle, I'm afraid these people already know that you have a second tribulation spirit treasure." Tian Kong Laozu pondered for a moment, and suddenly asked with a smile, "Boy, do you have any plans?" Lu Ping chuckled and said, "Anyway, no one is willing to let Grand Marshal Uncle obtain the ocean bell. It's not only because you're obviously stronger than the others, but also because no one here is willing to see the sect's strength grow any further. If Grand Marshal Uncle forcefully interferes, you'll definitely be surrounded and attacked. So, why don't we go and take the spirit vein first? Lu Ping smiled and said, no matter what, no one is willing to let you obtain the ocean bell. Tian Kong Laozu said in a low voice, it is not just these few people who have entered the sea treasure. The other sects and the demon clan have not shown themselves yet, so it seems that there are even more people who want to take this spirit vein. Lu Ping said in a small voice, Grand Master, you have forgotten that we have a spy on the inside. Together with Linglong's strength, even if this spirit vein cannot be completely taken by our sect, we can still get a large portion. Tian Kong Laozu slapped his forehead, and said, that's right, that spirit-seeking mouse of yours. Chapter 905. Dongyi Laozu, Kong Jing Laozu, Ao Dian Laozu, and Hai Han Laozu, who were in the midst of a chaotic battle, saw that Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping had only stopped nearby for a short while before leaving. The four of them heaved a sigh of relief at the same time. The power of a second tribulation spiritual treasure was simply too great. Where did Jinling obtain this second tribulation spiritual treasure? It was rumored that Jinling only had 4 spiritual treasures throughout the tens of thousands of years of history. However, among these 4 spiritual treasures, only the one that Tian Xiang Laozu controlled was a second tribulation spiritual treasure. The other 3 were all first tribulation spiritual treasures. Where did the spiritual treasure in Tian Kang's hands come from? Although Kong Jing Laozu and Ao Dian Laozu were plotting against each other just now, at this moment, they looked at each other. The increase in Jinling's power was equivalent to the increase in the power of the human practitioners. The increase in the power of the human practitioners actually meant that the power of the demon clan was relatively weaker. On the other hand, Dongyi Laozu and Hai Han Laozu knew that when the various sects of the North Sea were excavating the Yingtian temple, Jiang Tianlin had forcibly taken away a spiritual treasure. However, the original form of the spiritual treasure was a wine cup. With one look, they could tell that it was a first tribulation spiritual treasure. It was completely different from the one in Tian Kong Laozu's hands. However, didn't this mean that Jinling already had 6 spiritual treasures, and 2 of them were second tribulation spiritual treasures? Dongyi Laozu and Hai Han Laozu also looked at each other worriedly. Jinling's increasing power had caused these 2 sects to feel a deep sense of danger. How confident are you? Tian Kong Laozu asked Lu Ping as he walked towards the back of the lone peak. In the distance, there were 2 consecutive sounds of the protective barrier being broken. This meant that at least 2 more mid-Dharma adepts had entered the peak. Lu Ping did not directly answer Tian Kong Laozu's question. Instead, he said, there are already people at the source of the spiritual vein. They seem to be setting up a great array to guide the spiritual vein. Tian Kong Laozu's heart tightened, and he said, leave quickly. Just as they were about to reach the source of the spirit vein, Tian Kong Laozu suddenly raised his hand and stopped. Just as Lu Ping was wondering what was going on, a chaotic battle suddenly broke out at the source of the spirit vein. Lu Ping was stunned. His luck was too bad. Could it be that this trip to the vast sea inheritance was going to be fruitless? Angry roars and curses came from afar. Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu were both stunned and thought to themselves, Feng Shutao is there too. At this moment, the 2 of them moved their divine sense and tacitly hid their auras in a small forest beside them. Immediately after, a beam of light flashed across the sky and descended towards the small forest. It was none other than Feng Shutao. At this moment, Feng Shutao was in an extremely sorry state. Not only was his entire left arm missing, but the merry pestle around him was also moving up and down. It was obvious that the inner yuan in Feng Shutao's body was in turmoil. It seemed that this fellow had suffered at the source of the spirit vein again. Without another word, Tian Kong Laozu picked up the mountain-splitting axe and swung it at Feng Shutao. By the time Feng Shutao realized that something was wrong, the mountain-splitting axe had already reverted to its original size of 3 feet in midair. Feng Shutao looked like he had seen a ghost. However, this time was not like the time when he was in the protective barrier. Feng Shutao turned around and ran, but he was hit in the middle of his back by a misty white light. Feng Shutao suddenly realized that the inner yuan in his body had suddenly calmed down. He was a little happy at first, but he realized that the inner yuan had completely calmed down. Even if he wanted to use it, he could not. Feng Shutao panicked and used his cultivation method with all his might. The layer of white light covering his body peeled off like chips. Feng Shutao immediately felt that his body had returned to its original state. However, the inner yuan in his body had suddenly become turbulent again. This was even worse than when his inner yuan had been in a state of turbulence. Puchi. For streams of blood flowed out from his nose and ears, but Feng Shutao did not have the time to care about that. Even though it had only been a split second since he was hit by Lu Ping's White Lotus misty light, that split second was enough for the mountain-splitting axe to once again bring Feng Shutao within its attack range. Feng Shutao was so scared that his soul almost flew out of his body. The wound on his left arm, which had already stopped bleeding, suddenly sprayed out a stream of blood. Feng Shutao looked even weaker and paler than before, but he took advantage of the blood to cast the blood escape secret art. He blocked the mountain-splitting axe for a moment with his staff, allowing Feng Shutao to escape the attack's range. Even so, the light brought about by the mountain-splitting axe had already sliced through the protective aura around Feng Shutao. Feng Shutao spat out a mouthful of blood, and the speed of his blood escape instantly doubled. A moment later, he crashed into the protective wall of the formation. Tian Kong Laozu looked at the protective barrier, which was still shaking but not damaged at all, and said, "So this protective barrier is only meant for people who go up the mountain. If you go down the mountain and go in the opposite direction, it will be fine." No wonder Feng Shutao and Ao Dian were able to join forces to attack us. These two must have secretly worked together to break through the barrier and get ahead of us. Lu Ping could not help but feel a little dejected when he saw that he had not been able to kill Feng Shutao this time. However, Tian Kong Laozu laughed and said, "How can a mid-Dharma adept be killed so easily? To be able to severely injure Feng Shutao this time was already beyond my expectations. Previously, when Feng Shutao and Ao Dian joined forces, the one they really wanted to kill was you." Seeing that Lu Ping was deep in thought, Tian Kong Laozu continued, "However, Feng Shutao will definitely not have it easy this time. The light from the numinous artifact pierced his body, and it will probably take him at least 10 years to recover. Furthermore, he had one of his arms chopped off earlier. Even if the injuries he suffered are not as severe as the old man's, they have at least damaged his core, which has ruined his last hope of advancing to the late Dharma stage." Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu saw that Feng Shutao had escaped and knew that they would not be able to catch up to him even if they chased after him. Thus, the two of them headed towards the source of the spirit vein. Previously, the two of them had tried to kill Feng Shutao, and it was likely that the people there had heard the commotion. However, they did not know if the two of them would end up like Feng Shutao. "Are you Taoist Tian Kong?" A gentle voice came from the source of the spirit vein. Tian Kong Laozu was taken aback and said, "Brother Yujian? Why are you here?" As they spoke, Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping had already arrived at the source of the spirit vein. There were more than 10 practitioners there, and there were humans and demons. There were also 4 Dharma adepts, and one of them was the leader of the Yujian sect, Laozu Yujian Laozu. "Brother Yujian, why didn't you fight for the vast ocean bell, and instead came here?" Sanghai Laozu glanced at the 2 demon Dharma adepts at the side. One was at the mid-Dharma stage, while the other was only at the early Dharma stage. Although the entry to the vast ocean treasure this time had stipulated that each clan was only allowed to send 1 mid-Dharma adept and 1 core forging disciple, some clans were obviously not strong enough and could only send out early Dharma adepts. It seemed that this demon practitioner was the demon king of one of the weaker clans. And the other mid-Dharma human adept did not belong to any of the major clans, but was a famous lone practitioner in the North Sea, known as Xiang Lu Laozu. Yujin Laozu laughed and said, "It's a fierce battle there, and I'm not strong enough. Even if I get the vast ocean bell, I'll be a target for everyone, so I don't want to get involved." Besides, even with Brother Tian Kang's power as a second tribulation spirit treasure, he didn't fight for the vast ocean bell, let alone a small clan like the Yujin sect. I might as well come here and get some benefits first. Mara's calamity was growing day by day, and the vast ocean bell was used to ward off Mara's calamity and protect the sect's legacy. But Yujin Laozu had given up on it without hesitation. Even Tian Kong Laozu had been persuaded by Lu Ping at that time, and he had only made this decision after much hesitation. Such decisiveness had really impressed Lu Ping. Lu Ping looked down at the ground. The spirit veins were bound by the veins of the earth. Because the lone peak was narrow, the source of the spirit veins was more concentrated, unlike when Lu Ping was at the peak of Failing Mountain, where the spirit veins were unusually scattered. On the ground, there was a huge, unfinished guiding formation, which actually covered more than half of the spirit veins on the peak. Seeing that Lu Ping and Tian Kong Laozu were looking at the guiding formation, Yujin Laozu smiled and explained, "The spirit vein on this lone peak is indeed a large spirit vein, and this large spirit vein is about the size of 15 medium spirit veins." Previously, Xian Ling sect's Feng Shutao arrived first, so he used the formation to encircle 10 medium spirit veins, which happened to be a complete large spirit vein. After that, many Taoists from various sects and demon cultivators arrived one after another. This Feng Shutao was quite an interesting fellow. Relying on the fact that he came first, he refused to let go of the 10 medium spirit veins, and demanded a share of the remaining 5 medium spirit veins. In the end, he incurred the wrath of the crowd, so we had no choice but to work together and expel him. Old ancestor Tian Kong and Lu Ping scolded Feng Shutao in their hearts when they heard that. In front of so many heroes, a person who had lost an arm and his strength was greatly reduced still wanted to take everything for himself. One had to admit that Xian Ling's sect had been arrogant for thousands of years in the North Sea, thinking that everyone should give in to them. Little did they know that Xian Ling's sect was already on the decline, and only Dao Xing Laozu's name was left to deter the sects in the North Sea. Otherwise, Xian Ling's sect might not even be as strong as Canghai sect. At this time, Xianglo Laozu suddenly said, "Flying Feather sect's fellow Daoist Huayu was also here, but when we surrounded Feng Shutao, he left on his own." Xianglo Laozu's meaning was very clear. He hoped that Jinling would not hog all the spirit veins like Xian Ling sect did. Tian Kong Laozu laughed and said, "Our sect is not as greedy as Xian Ling sect. We only want 5 of the mid-sized spirit veins." As soon as Tian Kong Laozu finished speaking, the faces of the crowd changed again. However, Jinling was not like Xian Ling sect. That was the true number 1 sect in the North Sea. The mid-Dharma stage demon cultivator was not like the human cultivators. He was the first to jump out and said, "Jinling is not a good person either. What right does Jinling have to hog 1/3 of the spirit veins in the vast sea treasure?" Tian Kong Laozu's face changed. He said, "Because of this." With that, he swung the mountain-splitting axe in his hand at the mid-Dharma stage demon cultivator. The Monster King roared angrily and a huge seahorse avatar floated in the air, glaring at Lu Ping like a tiger watching its prey. "Help me, I agree with what Brother Tian Kong has said." Lu Ping and the Demon King were both stunned. When they turned to look, they saw that the battle between Tian Kong Laozu and the mid-Dharma Demon King had already ended. From the Demon King's slightly disheveled expression, it was obvious that he had been defeated by Tian Kong Laozu. When the Demon King looked behind Lu Ping, he did not know when the Jade Sword sect's Jade Sword Laozu was already standing in a position to help Lu Ping. It was obvious that if Lu Ping showed any signs of losing, Jade Sword Laozu would step in to help. The Demon King glared fiercely at Lu Ping, his eyes burning with the desire to fight. However, in the end, he had no choice but to retreat to where the mid-Dharma Demon King was. Tian Kong Laozu smiled and nodded in the direction of Jade Sword Laozu. Jade Sword Laozu also smiled and walked back to the position he had occupied earlier. Since Brother Ran Liang has no objections, these 5 medium spirit veins will be taken by our sect. Tian Kong Laozu said to Jade Sword Laozu, Brother Jade Sword, how many do you intend to take? Jade Sword Laozu turned and looked into the distance. Another 2 Dharma adepts were rushing over. He understood Tian Kong Laozu's good intentions, so he smiled and said, 2. I only need 2 medium spirit veins. 2 demon kings had yielded. Jade Sword Laozu was obviously in cahoots with Jinling. The lone practitioner, Laozu Xiang Lu, naturally did not want to offend these 2 sections. Seeing this, he smiled and said, I am just a lone practitioner. I only need 1 medium spirit vein. Even Huayu Laozu, who had returned with Linggu sect's Nanyun Laozu, could only watch unwillingly as Jinling began to set up the spirit drawing formation, drawing all 5 medium spirit veins into the formation. At this time, another mid-Dharma adept had also rushed over. It was Chongming sect's Santan Laozu. With Jade Sword Laozu and Tian Kong Laozu as support, they also drew 2 medium spirit veins. Just like that, Jinling's side alone had 9 medium spirit veins. Of the remaining 6, Xiang Lu Laozu had 1, Huayu Laozu had 1, Nanyun Laozu had 1, and the 2 demon kings had 3. As for the core forging adepts, in front of these Dharma adepts, they did not have the slightest bit of weight. They were like children without the support of adults. They could only watch as the other sects divided up the benefits. Tian Kong Laozu looked at Lu Ping. Seeing that Lu Ping had nodded, he then turned to Jade Sword Laozu and San Tan Laozu, who had already finished setting up the drawing formation, and said, My 2 friends, please go ahead first. I will activate the formation later. San Tan Laozu had a puzzled look on his face, but he heard Jade Sword Laozu say, That's good too. We will first draw this spirit vein away. As the earth shook and the mountains swayed, the 4 medium spirit veins began to move continuously through the earth veins. In an instant, they had already left the spirit vein on the lone peak. However, it was unknown how long it would take for these 4 spirit veins to reach the mountain gates of Yujian sect and Chongming sect. And the drawing formation that was set up between the 2 sects would also consume more resources as time passed. Jinling drew the most spirit veins, so it would take the longest time to activate the drawing formation, not to mention the time it would take for the spirit veins to move in the earth veins. At this time, Xiang Lu Laozu also began to activate the drawing formation. The other sects were also nearing the end of setting up the drawing formation. When old ancestor Tian Kong saw this, he placed the 5 supreme-grade spirit stones in the center of the guiding formation according to the positions of the 5 spirit veins. The entire formation was instantly activated and started to circulate the formation with a commotion that was even more terrifying than when Jade Sword sect and Chongming sect activated the formation. At this time, the other sects also began to activate their drawing formation. Amidst the loud rumbling sounds, Lu Ping stood there motionlessly. If someone were to pay close attention to his face, they would see that rays of light blue light flashed across his face, and Lu Ping's entire face looked darker and darker. The entire lone peak shook for nearly 10 minutes before it gradually calmed down. Although the entire peak, which was originally full of spirit qi, was still filled with extremely thick spirit qi, this spirit qi was like water without a source, a tree without roots. Without the support of the spirit veins, this spirit qi would eventually dissipate between heaven and earth. Huayu Laozu of the Feiyu sect and Nanyun Laozu of the Linggu sect left in a hurry after the spirit veins were activated. After that, the 2 demon kings also left quietly. Xiang Lu Laozu, on the other hand, greeted Tian Kong Laozu and the others. Tian Kong Laozu was naturally very polite to Xiang Lu Laozu, a Dharma adept who was born as a rogue practitioner. Only Yujian Laozu and San Tan Laozu were left. The two of them seemed to have something to discuss with Tian Kong Laozu. "Brother Tian Kong, are you not interested in the sea bell?" San Tan Laozu saw that Yujian Laozu had spoken first, so he said directly, "Brother Tian Kong, if the three of us join forces, there is a high possibility that we can compete with the others." Tian Kong Laozu laughed bitterly and said, "This time, I'm afraid I'll have to implicate the two of you." As he said that, he told the two of them about Lu Ping's analysis. He said, "I didn't expect that this time, I brought a second tribulation spiritual treasure, but I became the target of everyone." Now, whether it is the Demon Clan or the Blue Sea sect, the other cultivators, they don't want the sea bell to fall into the hands of our sect. If the two of you appear with me, we will definitely face attacks from both the Demon Clan and the Human Clan. Yujian Laozu and San Tan Laozu both felt that it was a pity. However, it seemed that the two of them had not given up and still wanted to try their luck. After bidding farewell to Tian Kong Laozu and San Tan, they headed towards the direction where the battle was going on. After the two of them left, old ancestor Tian Kang's calm and composed expression changed. He hurriedly walked to Lu Ping's side and asked, "How was it? Did something happen to you, brat?" Lu Ping pulled the corner of his mouth and revealed an ugly smile. He said, "Fortunately, I managed to trick these people. Fortunately, I didn't attack the Jade Sword sect and the Chongming sect too severely. Otherwise, I would not have been able to hold on and would have been exposed in front of everyone." Tian Kong Laozu heaved a long sigh of relief and scolded with a smile, "You little brat, don't pretend to be innocent after getting the benefits. In this world of cultivation, how many people can use a spiritual treasure at the core forging stage? And how many people can exert the full power of a spiritual treasure at the core forging stage?" After saying that, Tian Kong Laozu changed his previous scolding expression and asked with a smile, "How was it? How many benefits did you get this time?" Lu Ping swallowed a rejuvenation pill and said with a smile, "I didn't expect that Ling Long could be so powerful. There were 3 spiritual veins from the monster clan, one each from Fei Yu and Ling Gu, and one from Xiang Lu Laozu, a rogue cultivator. There were 6 spiritual veins in total, and Ling Long intercepted half of them. After all, the Jade Sword sect and the Chongming sect are allies of our sect. So, Ling Long showed mercy and only intercepted 1 spiritual vein in total. The rest of the spiritual veins had already been sent to the main drawing formation of our sect when the great drawing formation of our sect was activated." Tian Kong Laozu's eyes lit up. He said, "That is to say, our sect has quietly obtained 9 spiritual veins this time, which is almost equivalent to 1 spiritual vein of a large spiritual vein?" Lu Ping nodded and said, "That is correct. However, it is best for our sect to keep it a secret. We have to say to the outside world that we only obtained 2.5 or 3 spiritual veins, and we have to say this in advance. In any case, our sect is the closest to Universe Island, and we are the first to complete the drawing of the spiritual veins. When the time comes, with our sect's example, even if the other sects only obtained half of the spiritual veins, they will only suspect that it was Canghai Laozu who did it, and not us." Chapter 907. Tian Kong Laozu laughed and scolded, "You're really cunning, kid." As soon as Laozu finished speaking, he saw Lu Ping stomp on the ground. After a while, the ground shook, and Debao emerged from the ground. He transformed into a fat young man, and then he handed 4 small spirit-gathering pearls to Lu Ping and said, "A large spirit vein has only given birth to 4 small spirit-gathering pearls after so many years. How poor." Lu Ping weighed the pearls in his hand and smiled at Laozu, "Martial uncle, I'll take these pearls." Tian Kong Laozu put the 9 medium spirit veins back into the sect, so he naturally didn't care about the small spirit-gathering pearls. However, he didn't agree explicitly, and instead said, the old man wants to see who the sea bell belongs to. At the very least, it can't fall into the hands of the sea sect. At this moment, Debeo suddenly said, Laozu, the spirit veins in the earth veins are starting to weaken, and the mountain guarding formation will collapse soon. At that time, the fight for the sea bell will probably become a chaotic battle between the human and demon races. Tian Kong Laozu and Lu Ping hadn't thought of this, and both of them were shocked. Lu Ping asked, how long do we have? Rumble. Before Debeo could answer, the entire mountain guarding formation started to shake violently, and this was a sign that the formation was starting to collapse. However, although the formation had lost its foundation, it had been embedded in the earth veins for tens of thousands of years. Even without the support of the spirit veins, the process of collapse was still extremely long. Tian Kong Laozu took off and said, the old man wants to go take a look, you leave first. Lu Ping hurriedly said, Martial uncle, I'd rather let the giant whale demon king get the sea bell than let Dongyi Laozu or Ao Dian get it. Tian Kong Laozu disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one knew if he had heard Lu Ping's words. Following Tian Kong Laozu's departure, Lu Ping seemed to feel that the sounds coming from the place where the battle had taken place earlier were getting more intense. Without another word, Lu Ping turned around and left. Although he could sense the situation in the battle with his current divine telekinesis, he did not have Tian Kong Laozu's protection at this moment. In the eyes of these Laozu, he was basically a delicious cake that everyone wanted a bite of. At this moment, it was more important for him to leave Earth Island first. Debeo followed closely behind and said, Boss, this is for you. Lu Ping took a sealed stone box from Debeo's hands. He looked at Debeo in confusion and asked, what is this? Debeo shook his head and said, I don't know either. I saw this box in the earth veins earlier and wanted to pick it up to take a look. Unexpectedly, I was trapped by the restriction formation deep in the earth veins. If it weren't for Linglong's help and the restriction-breaking talisman that boss left me, I'm afraid I would have died inside today. Lu Ping frowned as he looked at the stone box in front of him. Lu Ping was very familiar with the restrictions set up on it, but it was precisely because of this that he could do nothing about it. This restriction could be considered a self-destructing restriction. Only Lu Ping could open it using the correct method. If the method was wrong or if it was forcefully opened, the stone box would inevitably be destroyed along with the item inside. Perhaps it really was a treasure. Lu Ping put away the item, and Debeo immediately followed him and said, Boss, do you think this counts as a meritorious deed? If it weren't for my guidance, Linglong wouldn't have been able to intercept those spirit veins so easily. Lu Ping was too familiar with Debeo's skills. He didn't stop walking or raise his head. He directly asked, what do you want? Debeo stammered, Boss, why don't you give me the pair of black jade stones first? Lu Ping heard this and turned to look at Debeo in surprise. He said, what? You want to cultivate? Didn't you just break through to the third layer of the core forging realm? Although Fei Ling Island is rich in spiritual energy, I'm afraid you'll have to accumulate spiritual energy for a few years before you can break through to the middle stage of the core forging realm. Debeo immediately fell silent and didn't say anything. Lu Ping took 2 steps and suddenly turned back. Are you feeling pressured? Debeo scratched his head and said, De Gui broke through to the middle stage of the core forging realm not long after you arrived on Fei Ling Island. Among us, I've been with you the longest, but my cultivation is the lowest. Peach Blossom is also at the 5th layer of the core forging realm, and Lu Xiaohai is at the peak of the 1st layer of the core forging realm. It's only a matter of time before he surpasses me. Although Sister Xylan is also at the 3rd layer, her situation is special. Lu Ping raised his hand to stop Debeo from speaking. He said, I remember you once said that you wanted to leave the high-grade earth-level spiritual energy stone to you. I just don't know if you want to use it to smelt a 2nd or a 3rd spiritual item. Lu Ping paused and didn't wait for Debeo to reply. He continued, if you want to smelt a third spiritual item, then I can give you the obsidian stone now. If you want to try to break through to the transcendent stage, then the obsidian stone is what you need to smelt a second spiritual item to advance to the late stage of the core forging realm. Lu Ping finished speaking and plunged into the protective wall of the array. Although the protective array of the lone peak was showing signs of collapsing, such a huge array must have been set up in a complicated manner. Moreover, the internal structure of such a huge array was intertwined. It was impossible for it to completely collapse in a short period of time. De Bao didn't react to Lu Ping's words for a moment. In De Bao's mind, with his aptitude and condition, he would reach the peak of the core forging realm after advancing to the core forging realm. After that, he would just have to wait for death to come. However, Lu Ping's previous words clearly told De Bao that he even had a chance to advance to the transcendent stage. De Bao's entire body shivered. Seeing that Lu Ping had already crashed into the protective wall of the array, he hurriedly chased after him. He shouted, "Boss, wait for me." De Bao frantically crashed into the protective wall of the array, but he was tightly held by an arm. Lu Ping's voice sounded in his ear, "Shut up. Go underground." Without saying another word, De Bao's entire body suddenly exploded into a yellow fog and shrunk into the ground. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared without a trace. Just as Lu Ping crashed into the protective wall of the array, Lu Ping's divine will seemed to capture the aura of someone. However, this person was unusually cautious. In just a moment, he disappeared from Lu Ping's divine will. At this moment, although the array had not collapsed, it had lost its previous strictness. Many loopholes had been exposed. If it wasn't for the fact that Lu Ping's divine will was different from that of ordinary people, perhaps he would not have noticed this little movement. However, it was also because of this fleeting movement that Lu Ping understood that this hidden person was coming for Lu Ping. Who could it be? If it was Laozu at the mid-Dharma stage, there was no need at all for him to play this kind of hide-and-seek game with Lu Ping. He could have directly come to take Lu Ping's life. Furthermore, at this time, all the mid-Dharma Laozu were probably gathered at the peak of Lone Peak. Regardless of whether or not they had the intention to fight for the Sea Bell, it would be a lifelong regret if they did not participate in such a large-scale Dharma battle with Laozu. Therefore, it could only be an early Dharma adept or another enemy core forging adept. However, if it was Laozu at the early Dharma stage, even if there were loopholes in the array, he might not have revealed such a big loophole in front of Lu Ping. Therefore, there was only one possibility. Perhaps the hidden person was an enemy core forging adept. If that was the case, the ambush might not have been made by just one person. Lu Ping did not believe that with the strength that he had displayed so far, there would be any core forging adept in the North Sea who would dare to kill him alone. If they came to fight him fair and square, perhaps there would still be someone, such as the burly man behind the giant whale demon king, Kong Jing Laozu. Behind the protective array in front of Lu Ping, Ouyang Weijian pursed his lips tightly. "Little Ouyang, are you sure that Lu Xianping will pass by here?" A dark-skinned martial adept played with a pair of iron hammers in his hands as he asked Ouyang Weijian, who was in front of him. Ouyang Weijian nodded reservedly and said, "Of course. Otherwise, why would my teacher and your father have calculated the position of Tiankong Laozu and Lu Xianping before launching a sneak attack? Unfortunately, it was all for naught. You went for wool and came home shorn, didn't you? I heard that your teacher has now retreated with serious injuries, but brother Ouyang still dares to stay on Lone Peak. Such courage is really admirable." A mocking voice came from Ouyang Weijian's right side. Ouyang Weijian looked up and saw that it was Zhou Tong, the disciple of Zhang Shi from the Blue Sea sect. A trace of anger flashed across Ouyang Weijian's face as he said, "Who would have thought that Tiankong Laozu would actually have a second tribulation spirit treasure in his hands? Brother Zhou, don't go too far." Zhou Tong seemed to turn a blind eye to Ouyang Weijian's anger and continued to provoke him. I heard that brother Ouyang has lost to Lu Xianping several times in the past, but was always able to escape with his life. In the eyes of many North Sea cultivators, I'm afraid this is already quite amazing, right? Ouyang Weijian was furious. A middle-aged cultivator behind Zhou Tong hurriedly said, "You too, right now we should join forces to deal with Lu Xianping. Let's talk about private matters after this matter is over." Zhou Tong smiled and didn't say anything. Ouyang Weijian forcefully suppressed his anger and glanced at the middle-aged cultivator with slight disgust. If the giant whale demon clan's Kong Zhuang hadn't suddenly changed his mind, Ouyang Weijian wouldn't have found this person to make up the numbers. Although this person could be considered as a veteran core forging stage cultivator in the demon clan, and he was a cultivator of the same generation as his teacher Feng Shutao, Ouyang Weijian really didn't trust this person's strength. If it wasn't for his mistake just now, it was very likely that it would have aroused Lu Xuanping's vigilance. Ouyang Weijian knew that Lu Xuanping's divine sense cultivation was extremely high. The four of them occupied the four corners of the array formation space. This way, no matter where Lu Ping rushed in, he would be surrounded by the four of them, and the four of them could then lay down the array formation to kill Lu Xianping. At this moment, if Lu Ping was present, he would be able to recognize at a glance that the dark and strong Kong Zhuang cultivator was the primordial giant crocodile clan cultivator who chased after Lu Ping in the deep-sea demon territory. His name was Ao Li, and he was the younger brother of the Golden Dragon Island Lord Ao Chuang. Now his cultivation had also increased to the peak of the core forging stage, and he was only one step away from the Dharma stage. As for the middle-aged cultivator, he was even more familiar to Lu Ping. This person was the demon clan cultivator who set up a formation to surround and kill Chu Xuancheng, and then Lu Ping ruined his plan. Nearly 100 years had passed, and this person had not broken through the Dharma stage, but he was only one step away from the Dharma stage. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.